The foreclosure notice in the Department of Energy classified report arrived in Elena Garza's mailbox on the same morning, one declaring her inherited desert land worthless scrub land, the other about to reveal millions in diamonds beneath her feet. 27 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, secrets from Project Crystal Harvest, a strategic mineral extraction program her grandmother participated in, now threatened Elena's quiet existence. Once a nuclear weapons engineer at Los Alamos National Laboratory, Elena now scanned groceries at the Esperanza market to support her 8-year-old daughter, Lucia. Her husband, Robert, a naval intelligence officer, had died during a classified mission 3 years earlier, leaving them with mounting debt in a remote 40-acre plot of Arizona desert inherited from her grandmother, Carmen Rodriguez. The strange rocks her grandmother had collected weren't just odd geological specimens. They were the key to unlocking one of the Cold War's most carefully guarded military cover-ups, a discovery that could force America to rewrite history if Elena and her daughter lived long enough to reveal it. The Arizona desert stretched like an amber ocean around Elena Garza's double-wide trailer, the morning sun transforming the landscape into a painting of burnt oranges and deep reds. The modest structure sat isolated on 40 acres of what everyone in Esperanza called worthless land, inherited from her grandmother Carmen, who had lived there as a hermit for decades, collecting strange rocks and keeping to herself. At 5:15 a.m., Elena's alarm shattered the pre-dawn quiet. She'd been awake for hours already reviewing calculations in her head. Not the complex nuclear physics equations she once mastered at Los Alamos, but the simple, brutal math of survival: $803 for the mortgage, $312 for utilities, $560 for food and gasoline, and the ever-present weight of $13,400 in mortgage arrears that grew heavier each month. She slipped quietly through the trailer, careful not to wake Lucia, who slept clutching the model space shuttle her father had given her before his final deployment. In the kitchen, Elena methodically prepared coffee, her movements precise and economical, a habit retained from her years in the lab, where a millimeter's deviation could mean catastrophe. The mailbox at the end of the long dirt driveway rarely held good news these days. Bills, promotional flyers, and occasional letters from the VA explaining why Robert's death benefits were being reduced yet again. But today the metal box contained 2 envelopes that would alter the trajectory of her carefully managed decline. The first bore the logo of Southwest Financial Services, the final foreclosure notice she'd been dreading: 60 days to vacate or face eviction proceedings. The second envelope, addressed to the estate of Robert Garza, had been forwarded from their old address in Albuquerque. It contained a geological survey report from Southwest Geological Services, dated 3 months earlier, commissioned by Robert before his death. Elena stood in the harsh morning light, scanning the document with growing confusion. Technical terms like kimberlite intrusions, alluvial deposits, and metamorphic processes jumped out at her, but the conclusion was clear enough. The land contained diamond deposits of significant value. "Mommy, why are you standing outside?" Lucia's voice came from the doorway, her small figure silhouetted against the trailer's interior. Elena quickly folded the papers. "Just checking the mail, mija. Go get dressed for school." Back inside, she reread the report while Lucia ate breakfast, trying to make sense of it. Why would Robert have commissioned a geological survey of her grandmother's land? They'd been struggling financially even before his death. Geological surveys weren't cheap. Attached to the report was a business card: Dr. James Wallace, Senior Geologist, Southwest Geological Services. A handwritten note on the back read, "Mrs. Garza, please call regarding your husband's commission. Findings require immediate discussion. Time sensitive." After dropping Lucia at Esperanza Elementary, Elena drove to the small strip mall that housed Southwest Geological Services, wedged between a pawn shop and a payday loan store. Dr. Wallace's office was cramped but organized, with rock samples covering every surface and geological maps of Arizona lining the walls. "Mrs. Garza, thank you for coming." James Wallace was in his early 60s with weathered hands in the deep tan of someone who spent decades under the desert sun. "I'm sorry for your loss. Your husband was a remarkable man." "Dr. Wallace, I need to understand what this is about," Elena said, placing the report on his desk. "Why was my husband having our property surveyed?" Wallace leaned forward. "Your property sits on what we call a kimberlite pipe, a type of volcanic formation that often brings diamonds to the surface. What makes your situation unusual is the quality and concentration of the deposits. He opened a drawer and removed a small glass vial containing several clear stones. These came from surface sampling. The deeper deposits would yield larger and higher quality stones. Elena stared at the diamonds, struggling to process their implications. How much are we talking about? Conservative estimates put the value between $30 and $50 million, depending on extraction efficiency. The numbers were abstract, too large to comprehend for someone accustomed to calculating whether she could afford milk that week. If this is true, why hasn't anyone noticed before? My grandmother lived there for 40 years. Wallace hesitated. That's where things get interesting. Your grandmother's rock collection. Those weren't just random specimens. They were selected with expertise, almost as if she was monitoring the site. He paused. Mrs. Garza, did you know your grandmother worked for the Nevada test site in the 1960s? Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the office's air conditioning. She was a lab technician of some kind. She never discussed it. Wallace nodded. Your husband mentioned that. He was very interested in her employment history when he commissioned the survey. He pulled out another file. There's something else you should know. These diamonds exhibit unusual properties. Crystal structures inconsistent with natural formation and trace radiation signatures I've never seen before. Radiation, Elena's nuclear engineering background, immediately activated. What kind of radiation? Low level, not immediately dangerous, but with an isotopic signature I couldn't identify. I sent samples to colleagues at Berkeley for analysis. Wallace leaned back. Your husband seemed particularly interested in these anomalies. He mentioned something about crystal harvest. Does that mean anything to you? Elena shook her head, but the term triggered something in her memory, a classified project designation she'd glimpsed years ago in Los Alamos archives. Mrs. Garza, you should also know that other parties have expressed interest in your property recently. A company called Horizon Resources contacted me last week asking about surveys in your area. I've never heard of them. They're a mining conglomerate, but they were unusually specific about your property. I didn't share any information, but their interest suggests they know something. As Elena drove to her shift at Esperanza Market, her mind raced through possibilities. The diamond discovery explained their financial salvation, but raised disturbing questions. Why had Robert kept the survey secret? What connection did it have to her grandmother's past? And why was a mining company asking questions before the survey results were even delivered? The market was busy when she arrived, ranch hands picking up supplies, retirees carefully counting pennies for basic necessities. Elena scanned groceries mechanically, her MIT-trained mind calculating escape velocities from poverty while maintaining her practiced smile. Paper or plastic, Mrs. Mendez? She asked the elderly woman buying cat food and day-old bread. Paper, dear. Saving the environment one bag at a time. Mrs. Mendez leaned closer. There was a man asking about you earlier. Smart suit city car. Said he represented some resources company. Elena maintained her smile while her pulse quickened. Probably confusion with someone else. Her shift manager approached as Mrs. Mendez left. Elena, there's a call for you. Line 2. The voice on the phone was female, authoritative, and familiar. Elena, it's Catherine Morgan. Don't react. This line isn't secure. Are you still at the 40-acre plot off Route 77? Colonel Catherine Morgan had been her supervisor at Los Alamos before Elena resigned. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. Yes, Elena answered carefully. Your property file was accessed through DOE databases yesterday. Classified access high level. Watch yourself. I'll call again when I can. The line went dead. By the time her shift ended, Elena's anxiety had crystallized into a tactical plan. She collected Lucia from after-school care and drove home via a circuitous route, checking for tails, a habit Robert had insisted she learn. The red Jeep Cherokee parked on the ridge overlooking their property was therefore immediately obvious. Through the trailer's kitchen window, Elena watched a man in an expensive suit examining the ground with professional interest, occasionally photographing rock formations. He moved with military precision despite his civilian appearance. Lucia, homework at the kitchen table, please. Don't go outside. Elena retrieved the 9mm Beretta from the hidden compartment Robert had installed beneath the bedroom floorboards. She checked the magazine, chambered around, then tucked it into the back of her jeans, concealed by her loose work shirt. Excuse me, she called out as she approached the man. This is private property. He turned with practiced smoothness, his smile never reaching his cold eyes. Mrs. Garza and presume Richard Brooks, Horizon Resources. He extended a business card that Elena didn't take. I was hoping to discuss a business opportunity regarding your property. You're trespassing, Mr. Brooks. Let's not start off on the wrong foot. His tone hardened slightly. I understand you're facing foreclosure. Never pleasant, especially for a single mother. The reference to her financial situation sent ice through Elena's veins. The foreclosure notice had arrived just that morning. My financial situation is none of your business. Please leave immediately. Brooks held up his hands in mock surrender. Mrs. Garza, I understand your protective instinct. I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 cash for mineral rights to your property, enough to solve your immediate problems. The amount was a fraction of what Wallace had estimated, but enough to sound generous to someone desperate. Elena recognized the predatory tactic. How do you know about mineral rights on my property? Brooks smiled. We're in the business of identifying underutilized resources. Your property has certain geological characteristics that suggest potential value. I'm not interested. Leave now or I'll call the sheriff. Brooks's expression hardened. Mrs. Garza, you're making a mistake. Mineral extraction is complex, expensive, risky business. We're offering certainty, immediate cash for land you can't develop yourself. The certainty I need right now is seeing you leave my property. After a tense moment, Brooks returned to his Jeep. Before departing, he called out, I'll leave my card. The offer stands for 48 hours. After that, we explore other options. As he drove away, Elena noticed him photographing more of the property through his window. She collected Lucia from the trailer and drove immediately to the Esperanza Public Library, where she used a public computer to search for information on Horizon Resources. The company appeared legitimate on the surface, a mid-sized mining operation with projects across the Southwest. But deeper digging revealed concerning connections. Its parent company, Atlas Global Industries, had ties to defense contractors and former intelligence officials. Their board included 3 retired generals and a former CIA operations director. Elena's phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Secure line, call now. She recognized Catherine Morgan's protocol from their Los Alamos days. Using the library's payphone, Elena dialed the number. Catherine, what's happening? Listen carefully. DOE's counterintelligence is showing unusual interest in your property. File requests normally reserved for national security concerns. And they're not the only ones. There's chatter about something called Crystal Harvest Legacy involving your coordinates. A mining company representative was just at my property. Horizon Resources Front Company. Their director, Richard Brooks, is former CIA specialized in nuclear nonproliferation until his quiet resignation in 2016. Elena, what exactly did your grandmother leave you besides land? Just the property and some personal effects. Wipe on. Your grandmother wasn't just any lab technician. Carmen Rodriguez was assigned to Project Crystal Harvest, a classified program even I can't access details on. Something about diamonds and weapons applications. I don't know more, but suddenly a lot of people with high clearances are interested in your backyard. Elena's mind raced. What should I do? Secure any materials your grandmother left. Documents, photographs, anything. And get legal protection immediately. I'm sending you contact information for Patricia Ramirez. Former JAG now specializes in mineral rights and national security cases. Catherine is my daughter in danger. The pause before Colonel Morgan's response was answer enough. Take reasonable precautions. I'll be in touch when I can. That evening, after putting Lucia to bed, Elena examined her grandmother's belongings boxes she'd never fully unpacked after inheriting them 3 years earlier. Carmen Rodriguez had lived like a hermit, distrustful of banks and institutions. Now Elena understood why. Among old clothes and kitchen items, she found a locked metal box. The key wasn't among her grandmother's effects, but Elena recognized the lock design, a standard government-issue security container from the 1960s. Using a paperclip and the skills Robert had taught her, she manipulated the simple mechanism until it clicked open. Inside were her grandmother's employment records from the Nevada test site, 1962-1975. A dog-eared notebook filled with crystallography diagrams and radiation measurements and photographs of Carmen in a white lab coat standing beside men in military uniforms. One photo showed her next to a sign reading, Project Crystal Harvest Authorized Personnel Only. The notebook contained meticulous records of rock samples identified by grid coordinates that corresponded to their property. Each entry included radiation readings and crystal structure observations spanning decades. The final pages contained a hand-drawn map of their 40 acres with an area marked Ground Zero and the notation Containment Integrity 50-year maximum. As Elena examined the documents, Lucia appeared in the doorway rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, I can't sleep. Can I look at Bisabuela's rocks again?" Carmen's rock collection sat in coffee cans on shelves in what had been her workshop. Elena had kept them out of respect for her grandmother's memory, though she'd never understood the obsession. "It's late, mija. Tomorrow, okay." "But I found one that glows," Lucia insisted. "It's so pretty in the dark." Elena froze. "Show me." Lucia led her to the workshop and pointed to a coffee can labeled Site 7G Samples. Inside were dozens of rough stones. Lucia reached in and removed a cloudy grayish rock about the size of a marble. "Watch," she said, turning off the light. In the darkness, the stone emitted a faint bluish glow. Elena's scientific training recognized the implications immediately: phosphorescence consistent with certain radiation exposures. She turned the light back on and carefully replaced the stone. "Lucia, listen carefully. These rocks are special, but they might not be safe to handle. Tomorrow we'll get special containers for them, okay? Like scientists use." "Are they dangerous? Like at your old job?" Elena hugged her daughter. "Not very, but we should be careful. Now back to bed, please." After Lucia was asleep, Elena returned to the workshop with a Geiger counter Robert had given her as a joke gift for the nuclear physicist who has everything. The device had seemed silly then, but now she swept it methodically over the rock collection. Most samples registered minimal radiation, barely above background levels. But the stones in the can, labeled Site 7G, showed elevated readings not immediately hazardous, but definitely abnormal. Elena photographed everything, then secured the most radioactive samples in a lead-lined case she'd kept from her Los Alamos days. Her phone vibrated with another text: "FBI in town asking questions. Secure lawyer immediately. We'll call tomorrow." Elena barely slept, her mind churning through fragments of information. By dawn, she'd formed a hypothesis. Carmen hadn't been collecting rocks out of eccentricity. She'd been monitoring something. Something buried on their property that involved diamonds, radiation, and national security. Something the government now wanted to contain and others wanted to exploit. As first light broke over the desert, Elena made her decision. She woke Lucia early. "Mija, we're going on a special trip to visit Tia Maria in Phoenix for a few days. But I have school and the science fair. This is more important. Pack your favorite things and some clothes. It's an adventure." While Lucia packed, Elena called her sister Maria, keeping the explanation vague but urgent. Maria, accustomed to her sister's occasional intensity from her Los Alamos days, agreed without pressing for details. Next, Elena called Patricia Ramirez's office, leaving a message with her secretary. "My name is Elena Garza. Colonel Catherine Morgan referred me. I need immediate consultation regarding mineral rights with national security implications." Before departing, Elena concealed her grandmother's documents and the most significant rock samples in a waterproof container, which she buried beneath the workshop floor. She copied essential photographs and notes to a secure digital drive, which she hid in Lucia's favorite stuffed animal, a teddy bear with a hidden compartment where the girl kept treasures. They were loading the car when a black SUV with government plates turned onto their dirt road, followed by Richard Brooks' red Jeep. "Change of plans," Elena told Lucia calmly. "Get in the back seat and stay down." She started their aging Honda Civic and accelerated down the back trail. Robert had shown her a rough path, barely visible among the scrub, connecting to a service road that eventually met Highway 191, 5 miles south of their usual route. In the rearview mirror, Elena saw the SUV reach their trailer and stop. Two men in suits emerged, followed by Brooks. One pointed in the direction of their dust trail. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" Lucia asked from the back seat. Elena met her daughter's eyes in the mirror, seeing Robert's steady gaze reflected back. "No, mija. But sometimes people want things that belong to us, and we need to be smart about protecting what's ours. Like Bisabuela's special rocks." "Exactly like that." Elena accelerated onto the highway, heading toward Phoenix. "How did you know they were special?" "Bisabuela told me. She said they were diamonds made by fire from the sky, and someday they'd help people instead of hurting them." Elena's grip tightened on the steering wheel. When did she tell you this? Before she went to heaven, she said it was a secret between us, but I could tell you when the men in suits came looking. The implications sent a chill through Elena. Carmen had anticipated this moment, preparing even a child for what was coming. What else did Bisabuela tell you? That there's a special place under the workshop floor where she kept her important papers, and that you would know what to do with them because you're smart about atoms. Elena nearly missed their exit. Her grandmother had hidden additional documents. Documents Elena had just left behind. Her phone rang an unknown number. Connecting it to the car's Bluetooth, Elena answered cautiously. Mrs. Garza, this is Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The voice was professional, measured. I need to speak with you regarding a matter of national security. I'm currently driving with my daughter. This isn't a good time. I understand, but this is urgent. Your property may contain materials related to a classified government project. We need to secure the site and debrief you immediately. Agent Walsh, I'll be happy to cooperate after consulting with my attorney. I've contacted Patricia Ramirez's office and expect to meet with her today. A pause. Mrs. Garza, given your background at Los Alamos, you understand the importance of containing potential radiation hazards. This isn't just about national security. Public safety may be at risk. The mention of her Los Alamos background confirmed Elena's suspicions that this went beyond simple mineral rights. I appreciate your concern, Agent Walsh. I've already secured the relevant samples according to proper radiation protocols. I'll contact your office after meeting with legal counsel. Mrs. Garza, Elena ended the call. Minutes later, her phone rang again, Catherine Morgan. Elena listened carefully. FBI counterterrorism is involved now. This just escalated beyond mineral rights. Where are you, poem? Heading to Phoenix with Lucia, Catherine. What the hell is going on? I've been digging. Project Crystal Harvest wasn't just any Cold War program. It was a diamond enhancement initiative tied to nuclear testing, creating synthetically improved diamonds with weapons applications. Your grandmother's property was adjacent to a test site. The project was officially terminated in 1967 after an incident, but your grandmother continued unofficial monitoring for decades. Why is everyone interested now? Two reasons. First, those diamonds aren't just valuable, they have unique properties that modern weapon systems could utilize. Second, there's something buried on your property that was never properly decommissioned. Something the DOE is very nervous about. Who are these people from Horizon Resources really? Former intelligence officials with connections to Russian defense interests. They're after whatever technology is buried there, not just diamonds. Elena, you need to... The call dropped suddenly. Elena tried calling back but received an automated message. The number you have dialed is not in service. By the time they reached Phoenix, Elena had formulated a plan. She dropped Lucia with Maria, giving her sister minimal details, just enough to explain the need for vigilance without causing panic. If anyone asks about us, you haven't seen us. If someone suspicious appears, call this number immediately. She handed Maria a prepaid phone. I'll check in every few hours. Elena, you're scaring me, Maria said. Is this about Robert? About what really happened to him? The question caught Elena off guard. What do you mean? He came to see me before his last deployment. Said if anything happened to him, I should tell you to look in Carmen's rock collection. Said it wasn't what it seemed. Elena felt the ground shift beneath her. Did he say anything else? Just that Carmen knew things about government projects that could put you in danger if the wrong people found out. I thought he was being paranoid, but now... Elena hugged her sister. Take care of Lucia. I'll explain everything when I can. Her meeting with Patricia Ramirez took place not at the attorney's office, but at a quiet coffee shop in downtown Phoenix. Ramirez was in her 50s, with shrewd eyes and the direct manner of someone accustomed to high-stakes negotiations. Colonel Morgan briefed me, she said after they sat down. You've stumbled into something bigger than mineral rights, Dr. Garza. I gathered that when the FBI showed up. What exactly am I dealing with? Legally speaking, a perfect storm. Your property contains valuable minerals which gives you certain rights. But if those minerals were created or altered by government activity, particularly classified nuclear testing, those rights become murky. Add in national security implications and potential environmental hazards, and we're in unprecedented territory. Can they just take my land? Not without compensation, but they can make it impossible for you to access or utilize it. The more pressing concern is your safety. If Horizon Resources is what I suspect a front for foreign interests seeking classified technology, they won't limit themselves to legal channels. What about the FBI? Are they legitimate? Agent Walsh is legitimate FBI counterterrorism, but that doesn't mean she's telling you everything. Different government agencies often compete for jurisdiction over classified material. The DOE, DOD, and intelligence community may all have different agendas regarding whatever is buried on your property. Elena showed Ramirez the photographs of her grandmother's documents. The attorney studied them carefully. These coordinates match your property. Yes, centered around what she labeled ground zero. In these radiation measurements, they show a consistent pattern of decay. Elena nodded. Consistent with cesium-137 and strontium-90 common in nuclear testing, but there's another isotope signature I don't recognize. Ramirez pointed to a notation in Carmen's journal. Operation Clean Sweep, 12 sacrifices for millions. Any idea what that means? No, but the date corresponds with what Catherine called an incident in 1967. Ramirez closed the folder. Here's what we're going to do. First, I'm filing emergency injunctions preventing any access to your property without court approval. Second, I'm arranging secure storage for these documents with a trusted colleague. Third, we need to find someone who knows what really happened in 1907. Catherine mentioned a Dr. Samuel Reynolds, a retired physicist from Los Alamos, who worked on Project Crystal Harvest. Can you contact him? I can try through Los Alamos channels, but it might raise flags. Do it. We need answers before we can protect your interests effectively. Ramirez hesitated. Dr. Garza, given your background, I assume you understand the potential implications if nuclear material was improperly secured on your property for decades. Elena nodded grimly. Beyond the environmental and health concerns, if someone wanted to acquire weapons-grade material or classified technology, she left the thought unfinished. Exactly. Which means this isn't just about your property rights, it's about national security. We need to work with the authorities, but on our terms, with full disclosure of what they're really after. After the meeting, Elena used a public terminal at the Phoenix Library to access Los Alamos archives through her old credentials, which surprisingly still worked. She located Dr. Samuel Reynolds, retired in 1987, last known residence in Taos, New Mexico. She was about to log out when a message popped up on screen. Dr. Garza, your access is being monitored. Terminate immediately. Call secure line. It was signed in CM Catherine Morgan. Elena cleared the browser history and left quickly, feeling exposed. She purchased another prepaid phone from a convenience store and called Catherine's secure line. Your Los Alamos credentials triggered alerts, Catherine said without preamble. Whatever you were looking for, they know you're looking. I need to contact Dr. Samuel Reynolds about Project Crystal Harvest. A long pause. Elena Reynolds is dying, terminal cancer. He's in a VA hospice in Albuquerque. Heavily monitored. DOE has him under surveillance. Why? Because 3 weeks ago he requested access to Crystal Harvest files, claiming he needed to make a deathbed confession about the 67 incident. His request was denied, but it set off alarm bells throughout the intelligence community. I need to speak with him. Nearly impossible. The facility is secure, visitors screened, but I might have a way. Reynolds' daughter Janet is a friend. If anyone can get you in, it's her. Set it up. And Catherine, thank you. Don't thank me yet. This goes deeper than you know. Your husband wasn't just investigating diamonds, he was investigating what happened to your grandfather. Antonio Rodriguez didn't die of heart failure in 1967. He was one of the 12 sacrifices. Elena felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. What? That's all I know. Be careful, Elena. Not everyone involved wants the truth exposed. That night in Maria's guest bedroom, Elena examined the photographs of her grandmother's documents, again looking for anything she might have missed. One page contained a series of numbers that appeared random, but Elena recognized the pattern, a simple substitution cipher, the kind Carmen had taught her as a child. Working methodically, she decoded the message. For Elena, if you're reading this, they've finally come for what's buried at ground zero. The device was never deactivated, only contained. Neutron initiator still viable. Diamonds are byproduct of test radiation. Unique properties make them valuable beyond money. Your grandfather died exposing the truth. Trust no one from Crystal Harvest. Find Reynolds. He knows what they did to our people. Robert was helping me. That's why they silenced him. Elena sat motionless, the implications cascading through her mind. The reference to a neutron initiator suggested an actual nuclear device remained buried on their property, not just waste or contamination. Her grandfather hadn't died of natural causes, but was silenced for exposing some truth. And most disturbing of all, her husband's death might not have been an accident during a classified mission, but an assassination connected to his investigation of Project Crystal Harvest. Her phone vibrated with a text from Catherine. Meeting arranged with Janet Reynolds tomorrow 10 a.m., Phoenix Memorial Hospital cafeteria. Come alone. Elena checked on Lucia sleeping peacefully in Maria's daughter's room, surrounded by borrowed toys and blissfully unaware of the dangers closing in around them. She brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face, struck by how much she resembled Robert, the same determined set to her jaw even in sleep. I'll make this right, Mija, she whispered, for all of us. Dawn brought news that raised the stakes further. A breaking story on Phoenix local stations reported an environmental investigation at a property near Esperanza with FBI and Department of Energy personnel establishing a perimeter due to potential radiation concerns. Aerial footage showed Elena's trailer surrounded by official vehicles and men in hazmat suits. The government had moved in using public safety as justification. Elena's property was now effectively seized, and she was being portrayed as either negligent or a potential threat. As she prepared to meet Janet Reynolds, Elena received another text, not from Catherine this time, but from an unknown number. They're monitoring your sister's house. Move immediately. Black sedan across street. Elena looked out the window and spotted the vehicle, two men in suits sitting inside watching the house. She quickly packed Lucia's essentials and led her out the back door to Maria's car. Change of plans, she told her sister. We need to borrow your car. Take my phone and keep it here. They're probably tracking it. If anyone asks, tell them I left early this morning, destination unknown. Elena, this is serious. Maybe you should just cooperate with the authorities. The authorities are the problem, Maria. This is about covering up something that killed our grandfather and possibly Robert. I'll explain when I can. Using back streets to avoid main thoroughfares, Elena drove to Phoenix Memorial Hospital, constantly checking for tails. She parked in the multi-level garage, then led Lucia through a service entrance she'd noticed during Robert's treatment 3 years earlier. The hospital cafeteria was crowded with staff and visitors. Elena spotted a woman in her 50s sitting alone at a corner table matching Catherine's description of Janet Reynolds. She approached cautiously. Janet Reynolds, I'm Elena Garza. The woman nodded. Catherine said you need to speak with my father. It's about Project Crystal Harvest. He may have information that could help me understand what's happening with my property. Janet studied Elena and Lucia carefully. My father is dying, Dr. Garza. The cancer is throughout his body, likely from his work on government projects he was never allowed to discuss. Whatever secrets he's kept all these years, they're eating him from inside. I understand. I wouldn't ask if it weren't important. Important enough to risk your daughter's safety, Janet nodded toward Lucia, who was examining a vending machine nearby. That's why I need answers. My family has already paid for these secrets with my grandfather's life and possibly my husband's. Janet's expression softened. Antonio Rodriguez was your grandfather. Yes. Did your father mention him? Many times over the years, especially when the morphine loosens his control. He carries tremendous guilt about the 12. I never understood what it meant until recently. She handed Elena a visitor's badge. My father is at Sunrise Valley Hospice in Albuquerque, not the VA facility. That's disinformation Catherine helped us spread. Room 237. I've arranged for you to visit as my cousin. You have 1 hour before the nurse change when they'll check IDs more carefully. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise that whatever you learn, the truth comes out. All of it. Elena nodded. I promise. Janet handed her a flash drive. My father recorded this last week. Said it was insurance in case he died before he could speak with you. I don't know what's on it. It's encrypted. As they parted, Janet added, one more thing my father mentioned Operation Clean Sweep recently. Said it wasn't about weapons, but about people. Said Carmen Rodriguez was the only one who tried to help. Elena drove to Albuquerque with a growing sense of urgency. The 3-hour journey gave her time to think through the pieces of the puzzle. A nuclear test gone wrong in 1967, 12 deaths including her grandfather Diamonds, with unique properties created by radiation, her grandmother's decades of monitoring Robert's investigation, and now interest from both government agencies and what appeared to be Russian intelligence fronts. What she couldn't understand was why now. Why after nearly 60 years was everyone suddenly interested in what lay beneath her grandmother's land? Sunrise Valley Hospice was a low adobe-style building on Albuquerque's outskirts. Elena left Lucia in the family waiting room with a book and snacks, then made her way to room 237, her visitor badge prominently displayed. Dr. Samuel Reynolds lay propped up in bed, his once powerful frame, now skeletal skin yellowed from liver failure. His eyes, however, remained sharp and alert. They fixed on Elena the moment she entered. "Carmen's granddaughter," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. "You have her eyes." "Dr. Reynolds, I'm Elena Garza. I need to ask you about Project Crystal Harvest." A thin smile crossed his face. "Finally, they said you'd come eventually. Thought I might die before you figured it out." "Figured what out?" "Why the diamonds glow. Why they're worth killing for. Why your husband died investigating them." Elena sat beside his bed. "Tell me everything." Reynolds adjusted his position painfully. It wasn't supposed to be weapons research, not originally. Crystal Harvest was designed to create industrial diamonds using controlled nuclear detonations. Cheaper than natural diamonds, perfect for manufacturing and electronics. What changed? The military got involved. Someone realized that diamonds created in a neutron-rich environment developed unique properties, superconductivity, at high temperatures, perfect for advanced weapon systems. The project shifted focus from industrial applications to weapons applications. In the 1967 incident, Reynolds' face darkened. "Test Galileo, June 17, 1967. We were testing a new type of neutron initiator within a clean fusion device, what would later become the neutron bomb. Something went catastrophically wrong. Instead of a contained reaction, we got radiation dispersion across a 3-mile radius. 12 civilian contractors were exposed to lethal doses, including your grandfather. The government covered it up. Completely, classified it as a minor seismic event, paid off families with the story that their loved ones died from various natural causes. Only a handful of us knew the truth. And my grandmother, Carmen, was different. She was a technician assigned to monitor radiation levels. She realized what happened and began collecting evidence, soil samples, radiation readings, witness statements. When she threatened to expose the cover-up, they offered her a deal silence in exchange for ownership of the contaminated land and a monitoring role. She agreed, but on her terms. She insisted on continuing independent monitoring of the site and the area's health effects. The rock collection. Reynolds nodded. Those weren't just rocks, they were evidence, particularly the diamonds that formed in the radiation-saturated soil. Carmen documented everything, waiting for the day when the truth could come out without endangering your family. What's still buried there? Reynolds hesitated. The test device itself, or what remains of it. The official story was that it was removed and dismantled, but that was a lie. The radiation levels were too dangerous for complete extraction. They applied a temporary containment solution lead and concrete shielding with a 50-year integrity estimate. 50 years, Elena whispered. That would be 2017. Exactly, the containment is failing. That's why everyone's interested now. The DOE has been monitoring increased radiation signatures from satellite imaging. They want to prevent an environmental disaster and keep the original cover-up secret. The Russians want the neutron initiator technology and the diamonds with their unique properties. And Robert, how did he get involved? Reynolds' expression became pained. Your husband approached me 3 years ago. Said he'd found references to Project Crystal Harvest in naval intelligence files related to Russian espionage. Carmen had contacted him, shared her suspicions that someone was planning to extract the device once the containment began failing. He was investigating the connection when he was killed, Elena finished. It wasn't an accident, Dr. Garza. There's a group of former military and intelligence officials who've been planning this for years. They call themselves the Legacy Group, dedicated to reviving abandoned Cold War weapons projects. Your husband discovered their connection to Horizon Resources. They eliminated him to protect their operation. Elena felt cold fury building inside her. Who are they? I only know a few names. Richard Brooks is their operations man, but their leader is someone much higher. William Harris, current Deputy Secretary of Energy. He was a junior officer on the original Crystal Harvest project. The same department now trying to seize my land for public safety. Reynolds nodded. They need to secure the device before anyone discovers it was never properly decommissioned. And they want the diamonds not for their monetary value, but for their weapons applications. Superconducting material that can function after electromagnetic pulse is priceless in modern warfare. What about the FBI agent Walsh? Legitimate, but she doesn't have the full picture. The FBI knows something dangerous is buried there, but not the complete history or why it was covered up. Oh, Elena stood processing everything. I need to expose this oath of it. Be careful. These people have spent decades protecting this secret. They won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens to reveal it. Reynolds reached for her hand. Your grandmother prepared for this moment. The diamonds aren't just evidence of the cover-up, they're the key to something more. Robert understood that. What do you mean? The radiation didn't just create valuable diamonds, it created the foundation for clean energy technology Carmen and Robert were developing secretly. The unique superconducting properties properly harnessed could revolutionize power generation without weapons applications. That's what the Legacy Group really fears, technology that would make their weapons systems obsolete. A nurse appeared at the door. Sir, it's time for your medication. Elena squeezed Reynolds' hand. Thank you. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Ground Zero isn't just where the test happened. It's where Carmen hid the prototype. Find it before they do. In the hallway, Elena nearly collided with a man in a dark suit, not hospital staff, judging by his earpiece and alert posture. She kept her head down and walked briskly toward the waiting area, fighting the urge to run. Lucia looked up from her book as Elena entered. Are we leaving now, Mommy? Yes, mija, very quickly and very quietly. They exited through a side door as Elena spotted two more men in suits entering the main lobby. Her mind raced through options. They needed transportation that couldn't be easily tracked and a secure location to process what she'd learned. As they reached the parking garage, Elena's phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Brooks at hospital, extraction team en route, head to Sandoval Street safe house. Catherine. The message included an address and door code. Elena hesitated. Could she trust Catherine completely? But with limited options and Lucia to protect, she made her decision. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in an older building near the university. Inside, they found basic supplies, secure communications equipment, and a laptop with satellite internet connection. Elena quickly transferred the flash drive data using decryption protocols from her Los Alamos days to access Reynolds' recorded testimony. The video showed Reynolds in his hospital bed methodically detailing Project Crystal Harvest, the 1967 accident and the subsequent cover-up. He named names, provided dates, and described the neutron device still buried on Elena's property. Most importantly, he confirmed Robert's murder was connected to his investigation of the Legacy Group's plan to extract both the device and the special diamonds. Carmen Rodriguez and Robert Garza discovered something the military never anticipated, Reynolds explained in the recording. The diamonds created by neutron radiation don't just have weapons applications, they can serve as perfect moderators for small-scale fusion reactions. Clean energy without radioactive waste. They were developing a prototype power generator when Robert was killed. The plans and prototype are hidden somewhere, Carmen called Ground Zero. Not where the test occurred, but a location only her family would recognize. As the recording ended, Elena heard a key in the apartment door. She pulled Lucia behind her, reaching for her weapon when Catherine Morgan entered. The recording is already being uploaded to secure servers, Catherine said, noticing the laptop. Good, we don't have much time. How did you find this safe house? Elena demanded, not lowering her gun. It's mine, from my intelligence days before Los Alamos. Catherine's eyes fixed on the weapon. I understand your caution, but I'm not your enemy, Elena. I worked with Robert on the energy prototype. Prove it. The prototype uses diamond-enhanced lattice confinement fusion. Robert called it Carmen's Fire, clean energy born from a weapon's aftermath. Poetry and science combined, just like him. Elena lowered the gun. They killed him for it. For discovering both the cover-up and the energy potential. Yes. Catherine moved to the window, checking the street below. The Legacy Group has operated in shadows for decades, preserving Cold War weapons technology for potential future use. When containment began failing on your property, they saw an opportunity to extract both the neutron device and the diamonds. Why not just buy the land legitimately? Because a legitimate purchase would require environmental surveys that might reveal the radiation source. And Carmen had legal provisions preventing mineral extraction without family approval. They needed to force you out through foreclosure, making it appear you abandoned the property, allowing government seizure for environmental remediation. What now? The government has control of my property. Not entirely. The FBI has established a perimeter, but interagency jurisdiction conflicts are slowing full access. The DOE wants control, claiming radiation hazards. The DD argues it's a military testing legacy. Meanwhile, the Legacy Group is using the confusion to prepare their own extraction operation. And the prototype Reynolds said it's at ground zero, not the test site, but somewhere only family would recognize. Catherine shook her head. Robert never told me the exact location. He said Carmen had hidden it somewhere symbolic, protected by both physical security and family knowledge. Lucia, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke. Bisabuela's special box is under the big rock, shaped like a heart. Both women turned to her. What special box, mija? Elena asked gently. The metal one with the lock that looks like a star. Bisabuela showed me last summer before she went to heaven. She said it was our family's treasure, and someday it would help everyone have lights without hurting the earth. Elena and Catherine exchanged glances. The heart rock, Elena whispered. It's a natural formation on the property Carmen used to say it was where the earth showed its heart despite human cruelty. It's about half a mile from the actual test site. Can you find it again? Catherine asked. Yes, but we can't just walk onto the property now. It's surrounded by federal agents. Not all of them are against us. Agent Walsh may not know the full history, but she's honest. If we bring her evidence of the cover-up and the Legacy Group's plans, she could help us access the property legally. Elena considered their options. We need to move quickly. If the Legacy Group realizes we know about the prototype, they'll accelerate their timeline. There's something else, Catherine said hesitantly. The containment failure is worse than Reynolds indicated. DOE sensors are showing neutron flux consistent with degrading shielding. If the device isn't properly secured soon, we could be looking at significant radiation release. How long? Days, not weeks. Elena made her decision. We contact Agent Walsh with Reynolds' testimony, offer limited cooperation in exchange for supervised property access. Meanwhile, we prepare for the possibility that the Legacy Group will move before official channels can respond. In the prototype, we secure it first. It's not just clean energy technology, it's evidence of what Carmen and Robert died protecting. As night fell over Albuquerque, Elena prepared Lucia for bed in the safe house's spare room, maintaining a facade of normalcy despite the extraordinary circumstances. Mommy, are we in danger? Lucia asked as Elena tucked her in. Some people want things that belong to us, mija, but we're smart and careful and we have friends helping us. Like Daddy did before his accident. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Yes, like Daddy, he was very brave protecting important secrets. Was it really an accident? I heard you talking to the lady about Daddy being killed. The directness of the question caught Elena off guard. Like Robert, Lucia missed nothing. I don't think it was an accident, mija. I think Daddy discovered something dangerous, and some bad people hurt him to keep it secret. Are they the same people looking for us now? I think so. Lucia's expression became serious beyond her years. Then we have to finish what Daddy started. Bisabuela said our family fixes problems, not runs from them. Elena hugged her daughter tightly. We will, mija. I promise. After Lucia fell asleep, Elena and Catherine reviewed their plans. Agent Walsh had responded cautiously to their initial contact, but agreed to meet the following morning. The Legacy Group, meanwhile, was moving equipment toward Esperanza under the guise of environmental remediation contractors. There's something else you should know, Catherine said, showing Elena satellite imagery on her laptop. These thermal scans show increased heat signatures at the containment site consistent with preparations for extraction. They're not waiting for official approval. How soon? 24 hours maximum. They're bringing in specialized equipment tonight. Elena studied the images. We need to get to the Heart Rock before they expand their perimeter. It's too risky. The FBI has the property surrounded, and the Legacy Group has operatives embedded among them. We don't have a choice. If they secure the test site area, they'll eventually find the prototype. And if containment fails during their rushed extraction, we're looking at a major radiological incident. Catherine nodded reluctantly. I have a plan, but it's dangerous. There's a maintenance tunnel from the old mining days that runs near your property line. Carmen showed it to Robert as an emergency exit. We could use it to access the property undetected. Went well tonight, while we still have darkness as cover. As they prepared equipment, radiation detectors, night vision devices, and secure communications gear, Catherine had stored at the safe house, Elena felt an odd sense of returning to her element. The methodical preparation reminded her of complex operations at Los Alamos, where precision and contingency planning meant the difference between success and catastrophe. They arranged for Patricia Ramirez to care for Lucia during their absence with strict security protocols and emergency extraction plans if anything went wrong. At midnight, equipped with tactical gear and armed with both technology and determination, Elena and Catherine set out toward Esperanza, toward the buried secrets that had claimed the lives of Antonio Rodriguez and Robert Garza, and now threatened Elena's family once more. The desert night spread before them like a black ocean, stars sharp as diamond fragments. Against the void, distant witnesses to a half-century of buried truths finally emerging from the silent earth. The desert at night concealed many secrets. As Elena and Catherine approached the perimeter of the property through the abandoned mining tunnel, the distant glow of government vehicles cast eerie shadows across the landscape. The tunnel itself was a relic of Arizona's mining history, a narrow passage barely 5 feet high, shored up with timber supports that creaked ominously with each step. Decades of disuse had left it partially collapsed in sections, forcing them to navigate by the pale green illumination of night vision goggles. Carmen showed this to Robert as an emergency escape route, Catherine whispered as they crawled through a particularly tight section. She never trusted the government to leave her alone permanently. My grandmother lived her entire life waiting for this moment, Elena replied, brushing aside cobwebs thick as cotton candy. I just never understood why. The tunnel ended at a rusted iron door, its hinges frozen with corrosion. It took both women pushing with their shoulders to force it open, revealing a small concrete bunker filled with dusty supplies, canned food, water jugs, and a ham radio setup that hadn't been used in decades. Your grandmother's contingency plan, Catherine explained. This bunker was built during the initial containment operation. Carmen repurposed it as her own monitoring station. Elena examined the faded radiation warning signs on the wall, the Geiger counter calibration charts, and a map of the property with concentric circles marking radiation zones. All evidence of a life dedicated to vigilance, hidden from her family behind a facade of eccentricity. They emerged from the bunker into the desert night, a quarter-mile from the property's southern boundary. In the distance, the lights of government vehicles illuminated a hastily established command post near Elena's trailer. Through night vision, they could make out figures in hazmat suits taking soil samples, while others established a more permanent security perimeter. The FBI operation is concentrated on the trailer and the workshop, Catherine observed. They don't know about the Heart Rock yet. Elena oriented herself using the property's natural landmarks, the jagged ridge to the west, the dry creek bed to the east. This way, the Heart Formation is about half a mile north in the shadow of the mesa. They move carefully across the desert floor, avoiding the loose stones that might betray their presence with sound. Elena's Los Alamos training and secure facility infiltration, ironically provided by the same government now hunting her, served them well as they navigated between security patrols. The Heart Rock emerged from the darkness like a sentinel, a natural sandstone formation weathered by wind and rain, into the rough shape of a human heart, complete with aortic arch. It stood nearly 12 feet tall, its reddish surface pale under starlight. This is it, Elena whispered, approaching the formation. Lucia said the box was underneath. Catherine swept the area with a handheld radiation detector. Low-level radiation present, but within safe parameters. Whatever's buried here isn't leaking significantly. Elena circled the base of the formation looking for disturbances in the ground. On the north side, partially concealed by desert scrub, she found what appeared to be a small sinkhole. Here, the soil's been disturbed recently. Together, they cleared away the loose sand, revealing a metal hatch secured with a combination lock. The lock's faceplate bore a five-pointed star insignia identical to the one Carmen had used on her jewelry box when Elena was a child. "Do you know the combination?" Catherine asked. Elena nodded. "Lucia mentioned a star lock. My grandmother used the same combination for everything important: my grandfather's birthday in reverse, followed by the atomic number for plutonium. She dialed in the numbers to 12 to 3194. The lock released with a satisfying click. The hatch opened to reveal a narrow shaft with metal rungs embedded in concrete descending into darkness. The faint odor of ozone and electrical components wafted upward. "Underground lab," Catherine whispered. "Classic Cold War design." The government built hundreds of these during the 50s and 60s, research bunkers hardened against nuclear attack. They descended cautiously, their headlamps illuminating a space approximately 20 feet square. Unlike the improvised monitoring bunker, this facility was professionally constructed. Reinforced concrete walls, specialized electrical systems and equipment racks filled with what appeared to be custom-built testing apparatus. This wasn't in any of the official Crystal Harvest documentation, Catherine said, examining the facility with growing amazement. "Your grandmother built this independently." The centerpiece of the underground lab was a lead-lined storage safe, its surface inscribed with the radiation warnings in both English and Spanish. Beside it stood a workbench covered with complex equipment, precision measuring devices, specialized tools for handling radioactive materials, and what appeared to be components for a prototype energy generation system. Elena approached a large whiteboard covered with chemical formulas and engineering diagrams. "This is Robert's handwriting," she said, tracing the familiar notation. "He was here working on the prototype." Catherine nodded. "After he discovered what happened to your grandfather, he connected with Carmen. They combined his naval engineering expertise with her knowledge of the diamond's properties." On the central workbench lay a leather-bound journal, Carmen's distinctive handwriting, filling its pages with observations, calculations, and technical diagrams. Elena opened it carefully, finding an entry dated just weeks before Carmen's death. "Final tests confirm the lattice structure maintains quantum coherence at room temperature. The neutron flux captured within the modified diamond matrix produces consistent energy output without degradation. Robert believes we've achieved breakthrough. The prototype generates 5 kilowatts continuously from a sample smaller than my thumb. No radiation byproduct. No waste. The perfect energy source born from the perfect weapon, a transformation worthy of our sacrifice. May Antonio forgive what we did in the name of progress, and may Elena understand why we kept the truth from her." Below the journal lay a steel container, approximately the size of a shoebox, secured with another combination lock. This one opened to the same sequence, revealing a device unlike anything Elena had seen before: a metal cylinder about 8 inches long with diamond-shaped windows revealing an inner chamber filled with a blue-green luminescence. A digital display on one end showed steady power output readings. "Carmen's fire," Catherine whispered reverently. "The prototype actually works." Elena examined the device carefully. Microfusion using neutron-enhanced diamonds as both catalyst and containment. Robert theorized this was possible, but I never imagined they'd actually built a working model. "This is what the Legacy Group really wants," Catherine said. "Not just the diamonds or the neutron device, but this technology. Clean, limitless energy would make their weapon systems obsolete and undermine the power structures they've built their careers on." Elena carefully secured the prototype in her backpack. "We need to get this to Patricia Ramirez. With Reynolds' testimony and this prototype, we have enough evidence to expose both the original cover-up and the Legacy Group's current operation." As they prepared to leave, a soft beeping sound emanated from Catherine's radiation detector. The colonel frowned, checking the readings. Neutron flux increasing from the direction of the test site. "Something's changing with the containment system." Elena checked her own detector, confirming the readings. The Legacy Group must have started their extraction operation. If they breached the containment incorrectly, we could have a major radiological incident. Catherine finished grimly. "We need to see what they're doing." They secured the underground lab and made their way cautiously toward the original test site, the true ground zero, where the 1967 incident had occurred. As they approached, the radiation levels steadily increased, though still within the margins of short-term safety. From a concealed position behind a rocky outcropping, they observed an operation far more advanced than expected. The FBI perimeter had been pushed back, replaced by personnel in specialized hazmat suits, bearing no agency insignia. Heavy equipment, including what appeared to be a modified mining excavator and portable radiation containment systems, surrounded a freshly exposed concrete structure embedded in the desert floor. "That's not standard DOE equipment," Catherine whispered. "Those are Russian-designed RKS-20 radiation containment systems, military-grade, not available on the commercial market." Elena focused her night vision binoculars on the personnel supervising the operation. Among them stood Richard Brooks, directing the excavation with precise hand signals. Beside him was a tall, distinguished man in his 70s, whom Elena recognized from DOE publicity photos, Deputy Secretary William Harris. "The Legacy Group isn't waiting for official authorization," Elena observed. "They're extracting the device now, using the confusion between agencies as cover. And using equipment designed specifically for handling neutron devices," Catherine added. "They knew exactly what was buried here all along." As they watched, the excavator revealed more of the concrete structure, a bunker approximately 30 feet square, its surface cracked and degraded from decades underground. Workers began cutting through the reinforced concrete with specialized saws, revealing a secondary containment chamber beneath. "We need to alert Agent Walsh," Elena said. "Whatever they're planning, it's happening now." Catherine shook her head. "Communications are being jammed in this area, standard protocol for classified recovery operations. We'd need to get back to the tunnel entrance to make contact." Before they could retreat, a new development caught their attention. The excavation had reached what appeared to be a sealed metal door in the bunker's side, likely the original entrance, buried during the containment operation. As workers prepared to breach the door, alarms suddenly sounded from their radiation detection equipment. "They've compromised the outer shielding," Elena said, checking her own detector. "Neutron levels rising." Through binoculars, they watched Brooks and Harris engage in a heated discussion, the older man gesturing emphatically toward the bunker, while Brooks repeatedly pointed at what appeared to be sensor readings. Finally, Harris made a slashing gesture with his hand, a clear order to proceed despite the warnings. "They're going to force entry regardless of radiation risk," Catherine said. "Containment be damned." Elena made a quick calculation. At current degradation rates, full containment breach would expose everyone within a half-mile radius to potentially lethal radiation doses. The groundwater contamination would affect communities downstream for generations. "We need to stop them." "How?" "There are at least 20 armed personnel down there." Catherine reached into her pack and removed what appeared to be a small drone. "Surveillance unit. If we can get close-up imagery of the illegal extraction operation and transmit it to the FBI, Agent Walsh would have grounds to intervene immediately." Elena nodded. "I'll circle around to the north side. There's less activity there, and I might be able to get a better angle on what they're extracting." They separated Elena, moving carefully through the desert scrub, using natural cover to approach the excavation site. The night vision goggles revealed heat signatures of personnel and equipment, allowing her to avoid detection as she navigated between security patrols. From her new position, Elena had a clear view into the excavated bunker. Workers had breached the metal door and were preparing to enter the inner chamber. The radiation detection equipment surrounding the site showed steadily increasing levels, not yet immediately dangerous, but trending in an alarming direction. Through her enhanced optics, Elena could see inside the partially open chamber. What she observed made her blood run cold. The device wasn't merely the remains of a neutron bomb test as Reynolds had described. It was much larger, a complete but miniaturized nuclear reactor system, surrounded by specialized equipment she recognized from her Los Alamos work: neutron reflectors, moderator materials, and control rod assemblies. This wasn't just a weapons test that had gone wrong. It was an entire experimental nuclear facility buried and abandoned after the 1967 incident. Elena activated her secure radio, hoping to reach Catherine despite the jamming. "Colonel, are you seeing this? It's not just a test device. It's a complete reactor system." After several seconds of static, Catherine's voice came through faintly. "Confirmed. I'm sending the drone footage to a satellite uplink now." "Elena, this changes everything. This wasn't just a diamond creation experiment or neutron bomb test. This was Project Magnox, a classified portable reactor program the military was developing for forward deployment. It was supposedly scrapped in the mid-60s. They didn't scrap it. They buried it after it failed catastrophically, Elena replied, the pieces finally clicking into place. The diamonds were just a byproduct of the neutron flux from the reactor core. Crystal Harvest was the cover story. As she watched technicians in specialized radiation suits prepared to enter the chamber, one carried what appeared to be a specialized containment vessel designed for extracting and transporting the reactor's core materials. They're not just securing it, they're salvaging the core technology, Elena realized aloud. The legacy group wants the reactor design itself. Makes sense, Catherine responded. Modern military strategy relies heavily on portable power sources for remote operations. A miniaturized reactor with neutron-enhanced components would be worth billions to weapons developers. Suddenly, Elena's radiation detector began emitting a high-pitched warning tone. The neutron flux levels had jumped dramatically, a sign that the inner containment was being compromised. Through her optics, she could see frantic activity around the bunker entrance. Several technicians were rushing out, while others appeared to be attempting emergency containment procedures. Brooks was shouting into a radio, gesturing wildly toward the chamber, while Harris stood motionless, his face a mask of cold calculation. Catherine, something's wrong. Radiation levels are spiking. I see it. They've breached the core containment prematurely. Elena, you need to fall back immediately. If the primary shielding fails completely, the radio dissolved into static as a blinding flash erupted from the chamber entrance. Not an explosion, but an intense blue-white light that illuminated the desert night like midday for several seconds. When it faded, Elena's equipment was dead: optics, radiation detector, and radio, all rendered useless by what she recognized as an electromagnetic pulse. In the sudden darkness, confusion reigned at the excavation site. Emergency lights flickered on, revealing technicians scrambling for backup equipment, while security personnel established a wider perimeter. Through her standard binoculars, Elena could see Brooks and Harris being evacuated to a lead-lined command vehicle at the edge of the site. She retreated, carefully navigating by starlight until she reached their predetermined rendezvous point near the Heart Rock. Catherine arrived minutes later, her equipment similarly disabled. Neutron pulse, Catherine said grimly. They breached the moderator assembly. Classic criticality accident. Casualties. At least 3 technicians were in the chamber when it happened. They received lethal doses instantly. Everyone within 50 meters will have significant exposure. And broader contamination. The pulse was brief. Most of the radiation was neutron flux, which doesn't leave residual contamination. But if the core materials were compromised, Catherine left the implication hanging. Elena checked her backup radiation detector, a simple civil defense model Carmen had kept in the bunker. Its needle flickered in the danger zone briefly, then settled back to elevated but non-lethal levels. We need to get the prototype to safety and alert Agent Walsh about what's happening, Elena said. The legacy group will be desperate now. They've had a containment failure that can't be hidden. As they prepared to depart, headlights appeared on the ridge above them, vehicles moving rapidly in their direction. Not the methodical patrol pattern of FBI units, but the direct approach of someone who knew exactly where to look. We've been compromised, Catherine said, drawing her sidearm. Move to the bunker entrance. It's our only defensible position. They reached the Heart Rock as the first vehicle, a military-style Humvee with spotlight mounted on its roof, crested the nearest ridge. The spotlight swept the terrain, methodically searching for movement. Inside Carmen's underground lab, they secured the entrance and activated the backup power system, a small generator that provided minimal lighting and ventilation. Elena examined their options for defending the position. The bunker was designed to withstand nuclear attack, but the entrance is vulnerable. They could blow the hatch or pump in CS gas. Catherine was checking her satellite phone's specialized equipment, hardened against EMP. Still no signal. The pulse knocked out communications across the entire area. We're on our own until systems reset. A mechanical grinding sound above indicated vehicles had reached their position. Voices became audible through the ventilation system, terse commands being issued in professional cadence. Secure the perimeter, 2-man teams, standard containment protocols. Priority is the prototype in any documentation. Subjects are considered armed and extremely dangerous. Elena positioned herself near the entrance, weapon ready, while Catherine established a fallback position deeper in the bunker, the prototype secured in a lead-lined container designed for transporting radioactive samples. The radio on the workbench suddenly crackled to life, not their tactical communications, but the old civil defense system Carmen had maintained. Dr. Garza, Colonel Morgan. The voice was Brooks's. We know you're in there. We have the entrance surrounded. You have witnessed a classified nuclear incident and removed government property. Surrender now and you'll be treated according to military protocol. Elena picked up the radio handset. This isn't government property, Brooks. It's evidence of criminal negligence and cover-up. 12 people died in 1967, including my grandfather. More are dying right now because you breached containment improperly. A different voice came over the radio, older, authoritative, with the measured cadence of someone accustomed to command. Dr. Garza, this is Deputy Secretary William Harris. You're interfering with a national security operation. Whatever Reynolds told you was classified information he had no authority to disclose. Surrender the prototype your grandmother and husband developed, and we can resolve this situation professionally. Catherine took the radio. Secretary Harris, this is Colonel Morgan. We have documentation of Project Magnox and its illegal continuation under Crystal Harvest. We have evidence linking you personally to both the 1967 cover-up and Robert Garza's assassination. This isn't a situation you can resolve through intimidation. A long pause followed before Harris responded, his tone noticeably colder. Colonel Morgan, I'm disappointed. Your service record was exemplary. Now you're aiding the theft of classified technology and interfering with a critical containment operation. Consider carefully what happens next. We have authorization to use all necessary force to secure that bunker. The radio went silent. Moments later, they heard the unmistakable sound of a helicopter approaching, the deep thrum of military rotors rather than the higher pitch of civilian or law enforcement aircraft. Extraction team, Catherine said grimly. They're bringing in specialists. Elena moved to the bunker's ancient surveillance system, a closed-circuit camera Carmen had installed decades earlier. The grainy monitor showed 6 vehicles surrounding the Heart Rock, their headlights illuminating the area like daylight. Men in tactical gear established a perimeter, while others prepared what appeared to be breaching equipment. We can't hold this position indefinitely, Elena observed, and we can't surrender the prototype to them. Catherine nodded toward the back of the bunker. There's another way out. Carmen showed it to Robert, an emergency escape tunnel that connects to the old mining system. It's narrow and hasn't been maintained, but it could get us clear of their perimeter. What about the radiation situation at the main site? If the core is still compromised, more people could be exposed. Our priority has to be securing the prototype and Reynolds' testimony. That's the only leverage we have to expose the legacy group and force a proper containment operation. Elena made her decision. We take the escape tunnel, but we need a distraction to cover our exit. She moved to the workbench, quickly assembling components from Carmen's equipment stores, a timer power supply, and several signal flares. This won't hurt anyone, but it will trigger their radiation detectors and create enough confusion for us to slip away. While Elena worked on the distraction device, Catherine prepared the escape route, clearing decades of dust and cobwebs from a narrow passage hidden behind a storage rack. The tunnel was barely 4 feet high, requiring them to crawl through cramped darkness. It emerges about half a mile east, near the dry creek bed, Catherine explained. From there, we can reach the highway without crossing their security perimeter. Elena set the timer for 5 minutes and placed the device near the ventilation system, where its signature would be most widely dispersed. They gathered essential evidence, Reynolds' testimony, Carmen's journal, and the prototype, and prepared to enter the escape tunnel. Ready? Elena asked, securing her backpack containing the precious prototype. Catherine nodded, her expression grim. Once we're clear, we head for Phoenix. Patricia Ramirez has federal contacts who can help us present this evidence properly. They crawled into the narrow passage just as voices became audible above the breaching team, preparing to force entry. The ancient tunnel was a tight fit, and its rough-hewn walls occasionally scraping their shoulders as they navigated by the pale glow of chemical light sticks. Behind them, the faint sound of their distraction device activating reached their ears, followed by shouts of alarm and the chaotic movement of personnel responding to apparent radiation warnings. After 20 minutes of difficult progress through the tunnel, they emerged into a dry creek bed, its steep banks providing concealment from the operation now visible on the ridge behind them. The helicopter circled the area, its spotlight sweeping methodically across the terrain. They moved quickly along the creek bed, using its natural depression as cover until they reached a culvert passing under the highway. On the far side, Catherine had hidden an emergency vehicle, an unmarked SUV with government plates. Backup plans, she explained as they entered the vehicle. Always have an extraction route. As they drove toward Phoenix, Elena monitored emergency channels on the vehicle's radio. Reports of a hazardous materials incident near Esperanza were being broadcast, with emergency services establishing evacuation zones for nearby ranches. The official cover story was already being implemented: a chemical spill rather than a nuclear incident. They can't hide this completely, Elena said. Not anymore. Too many people were exposed when the containment failed. They don't need to hide it completely, Catherine replied. Just long enough to secure the technology and establish a narrative that protects the legacy group. By tomorrow, this will be reported as an industrial accident during environmental remediation of an old mining site. Elena's satellite phone finally connected, allowing her to call Patricia Ramirez. The attorney answered immediately. Elena, are you safe? FBI agents were at my office asking about you. We're secure for now. Is Lucia still with you? Yes, she's fine, sleeping in my guest room with my daughter watching over her. What's happening? Elena summarized their discoveries and the incident at the excavation site. We have the prototype and documentation proving both the original cover-up and the legacy group's illegal operation. We need secure federal contacts, someone who can protect this evidence and ensure proper investigation. I have a contact at the Senate Intelligence Committee, Ramirez replied. Senator Malcolm Jenkins. He's been investigating unauthorized intelligence operations for years. If anyone can provide the protection you need, it's him. Can you arrange a meeting? I'll contact his office immediately. Where are you now? Heading to Phoenix. We should arrive in approximately 2 hours. Don't come to my office or home. They'll be watching both. I'll text you a secure location for the handoff. As they continued toward Phoenix, Catherine suddenly stiffened, checking the mirrors. We have a tail, black SUV, 2 vehicles back. Been with us since we hit the highway. Elena glanced in the side mirror, noting the vehicle maintaining a precise distance behind them. Government, no markings, but the driving pattern is tactical. Professional surveillance. The legacy group. Possibly, or regular FBI. Either way, we can't lead them to Ramirez or Lucia. Catherine executed a series of turns designed to confirm they were being followed. The black SUV maintained its position, occasionally dropping back, but never losing contact. Confirmed surveillance, Catherine said grimly. We need to separate. They're following the vehicle, not necessarily us personally. She pulled into a truck stop on the outskirts of Casa Grande, positioning their SUV between 2 semi-trucks to momentarily break visual contact with their tail. There's a bus leaving for Phoenix in 5 minutes, Catherine said, checking the station schedule. Take the prototype in Carmen's journal. I'll drive in another direction, drawing them away. Catherine, if they catch you, I know the risks. My involvement is already documented. You're the one they want to silence permanently, you and Lucia. Get to Ramirez and Senator Jenkins. I'll rendezvous when I can. Elena transferred the essential evidence to her backpack. Be careful, these people already killed Robert. They've been trying to kill the truth for 60 years, Catherine replied. They failed then, and they'll fail now. They separated, Catherine returning to the vehicle, while Elena moved quickly through the truck stop's convenience store and out the back entrance, reaching the bus loading area just as passengers were boarding. The bus pulled away 2 minutes later, Elena seated near the rear exit, her precious cargo secured beside her. Through the window, she saw Catherine's SUV exit the truck stop, the black surveillance vehicle resuming its tail. The colonel's diversionary tactic had worked. As the bus traveled north toward Phoenix, Elena reviewed Carmen's journal more thoroughly. The detailed notes revealed a scientific brilliance her grandmother had carefully hidden from the world: complex calculations for neutron capture rates, diamond lattice modifications, and energy conversion efficiencies that would have earned her recognition in any major research institution. One entry particularly caught Elena's attention, dated 3 months after the 1967 incident. The diamonds continued to exhibit unprecedented properties. The neutron bombardment has altered their fundamental structure, creating quantum coherence patterns I cannot fully explain with current theory. While the military sees only weapons applications, I recognize something far more significant: a new form of energy generation that could eliminate dependency on both fossil fuels and conventional nuclear power. Antonio died believing our work would lead to better weapons. I will ensure it leads to a better world instead. Subsequent entries documented Carmen's decades-long secret research collecting diamond samples from the contaminated soil, measuring their properties, and gradually developing theories that predicted their potential for energy generation. The final pages documented her collaboration with Robert, combining her theoretical work with his practical engineering expertise to create the prototype. The last entry, dated just weeks before Carmen's death, haunted Elena with its prescience. The Legacy Group has become aware of our work. William Harris visited today, his first appearance in decades. He claimed concern about the containment system's degradation, but his questions focused on the diamond samples in my research notes. Robert believes they're monitoring his communications. We've moved the prototype to the Heart Rock bunker and secured all documentation. If anything happens to us, Elena will eventually discover the truth. Her scientific background will allow her to understand what we've created, and her integrity will ensure it's used properly. The journey from weapon to salvation is nearly complete. The bus arrived in Phoenix shortly after midnight. Elena disembarked at the central station, immediately seeking a secure public phone to contact Ramirez. The attorney answered on the first ring. Southeast corner of Patriots Park. 20 minutes. Look for a white Prius with legislative plates. Elena navigated through nearly empty streets, maintaining counter-surveillance procedures Robert had taught her, changing direction frequently, using reflective surfaces to check for followers and occasionally doubling back. The weight of the prototype in her backpack, both physical and metaphorical, grew heavier with each step. Patriots Park was deserted at this hour, its war memorials standing as silent sentinels under security lighting. On the southeast corner, the white Prius waited, as promised, its engine running. As Elena approached, the passenger door opened. Dr. Garza, I'm Kevin Marshall, Senator Jenkins's chief of staff. Patricia Ramirez sent me. The man was in his 40s with the polished appearance and alert manner of a seasoned political operative. He displayed Senate credentials that matched his identification. Where's Patricia? Elena asked, not yet moving to enter the vehicle. Securing your daughter at our safe house. The senator is meeting us at a secure location. We need to move quickly. There's been significant law enforcement activity regarding your situation. Elena made a quick assessment, then entered the vehicle. As they pulled away from the park, Marshall spoke into a secure phone. Eagle is in transit, 20 minutes to destination. The secure location proved to be a nondescript office building in downtown Phoenix. Its upper floors dark except for one section on the 15th floor. They entered through a parking garage using a service elevator that required keycard access. The elevator opened directly into what appeared to be a law office conference room. Senator Malcolm Jenkins, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who spent time outdoors, despite his political career, rose from the conference table as they entered. Dr. Garza, thank you for trusting us. Patricia Ramirez has briefed me on the situation. Elena noted Patricia's absence. Where is she and my daughter? At our secure residential facility about 10 miles from here. I thought it best to separate the evidence from your family for security purposes. Elena placed her backpack on the conference table, but kept her hand on it. Senator, before I share what we've discovered, I need assurances about my daughter's safety and protection from prosecution for both myself and Colonel Morgan. Jenkins nodded. I've already initiated immunity protocols through the Senate Intelligence Committee. As for your daughter, she's under protection of the U.S. Marshals, our witness security team, not regular FBI. Now, what exactly have you discovered that has the Department of Energy and FBI conducting a midnight operation in the Arizona desert? Elena carefully removed Carmen's journal and the lead-line container holding the prototype. Evidence of a 60-year cover-up involving illegal nuclear testing, criminal negligence resulting in civilian deaths, and the development of technology that could fundamentally change global energy production. She opened the container, revealing the glowing prototype. Jenkins and Marshall leaned forward, their expressions shifting from political calculation to genuine amazement. What exactly am I looking at, Dr. Garza? A microfusion generator utilizing neutron-enhanced diamond matrices as both catalyst and containment. Clean energy with no radioactive waste. My grandmother and husband developed it using diamonds created accidentally during a failed nuclear test in 1967. a test that killed 12 people, including my grandfather, and was subsequently covered up by what's now called the Legacy Group. For the next hour, Elena detailed everything they had discovered: Project Magnox, the 1967 incident, the decades of monitoring by Carmen Roberts' investigation and subsequent murder, and the recent attempt by the Legacy Group to extract the abandoned reactor technology. The containment failure tonight exposed more personnel to radiation, she concluded. They can't hide this completely, but they'll minimize it and classify any investigation to protect themselves. Jenkins studied Carmen's journal, occasionally asking clarifying questions about technical details. Finally, he looked up with the measured expression of someone who had seen many government scandals during his career. Dr. Garza, what you've brought me is dynamite politically, scientifically, and historically. This prototype alone represents technology worth billions, not to mention its potential impact on global energy markets. The evidence of criminal negligence and cover-up reaches to the highest levels of the current administration, which is why I brought it to you rather than regular channels, Elena replied. The Legacy Group has operatives throughout the DOE, DOD, and intelligence communities. They've already killed to protect these secrets. Jenkins nodded thoughtfully. Here's what I propose. I'll place all evidence in a secure Senate Intelligence Committee vault, accessible only with bipartisan authorization. My staff will prepare documents granting you and Colonel Morgan immunity from prosecution related to these events. Meanwhile, we'll arrange secure accommodations for you and your daughter while we prepare for committee hearings. Hearings. This isn't something that can be addressed quietly through internal channels. The only protection against people like Deputy Secretary Harris is full public disclosure under Senate oversight. It will take time to prepare properly, but when we move, it will be decisive. Elena considered the proposal. Public hearings would ensure the truth couldn't be buried again, but would also expose her family to intense scrutiny and potential danger during the preparation period. How long? 2 weeks minimum. We need to secure additional corroborating evidence, prepare witness protection for all involved, and establish a security framework that the Legacy Group can't penetrate. Before Elena could respond, Marshall's secure phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened to the caller. Senator, we have a situation. FBI tactical teams have just arrested Patricia Ramirez at her residence. The official charge is obstruction of justice and harboring a fugitive. Elena stood immediately. Lucia was not at the residence when the arrest occurred. Marshall continued, still listening to his caller. According to our source, she was moved to another location an hour earlier. By whom? Elena demanded. Unknown. Not our marshals. The FBI is claiming no knowledge of her whereabouts. Jenkins immediately activated his own secure phone. This is Senator Jenkins. I need to speak with Director Whitmore immediately. Yes, I understand it's 2 a.m. Tell him it's a Code Amber situation involving the Senate Intelligence Committee. While Jenkins attempted to leverage his authority with the FBI director, Elena felt a cold certainty forming in her gut. It's the Legacy Group. They've taken Lucia to force my cooperation. Marshall nodded grimly. Classic intelligence tactic. They can't find you directly, so they secure leverage. Jenkins returned his expression grave. The FBI director claims no knowledge of any operation involving your daughter. The Ramirez arrest was conducted by the Phoenix Field Office at the request of the Department of Energy, specifically Deputy Secretary Harris's office, on national security grounds. They're going to trade Lucia for the prototype and evidence. Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Classic hostage exchange scenario. If that's true, we'll soon receive... Jenkins was interrupted by Marshall's phone ringing again. The chief of staff answered, listened briefly, then handed the phone to Elena. Dr. Garza. William Harris's voice was calm, almost paternal. I believe we have something you want returned safely. If you harm my daughter in any way, please, let's be professional. Lucia is perfectly safe and being well cared for. She's quite a remarkable child, very brave, very intelligent. Reminds me of your grandmother in many ways. What do you want? A simple exchange. The prototype and all documentation for your daughter. No law enforcement involvement, no Senate committee interference. A clean resolution to a situation that has already become unnecessarily complicated. I need proof she's unharmed. Of course. A moment later, Lucia's voice came through the phone. Mommy, I'm okay. They said it's like a game of spies, but I don't think they're the good guys. Elena closed her eyes briefly, relief washing through her at hearing her daughter's voice. Stay brave, mija. I'm coming for you. Harris returned to the line. Satisfied now. Here are the exchange parameters. The old aircraft graveyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. South entrance, 4 a.m. Come alone with the prototype and in all documentation. Any sign of law enforcement or military involvement in the exchange is canceled permanently. I'll be there. I know you will. The call ended. Elena turned to Jenkins and Marshall. I need transportation to Tucson immediately. Jenkins shook his head. Dr. Garza, this is obviously a trap. Once they have the prototype and documentation, they have no incentive to release either of you. The legacy group can't afford witnesses at this point. I don't have a choice. She's my daughter. And there's always a choice. My committee can bring the full weight of the federal government to bear, by which time Lucia could be gone. Elena interrupted. Senator, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't negotiable. I'm going to the exchange. Jenkins studied her for a moment, then nodded to Marshall. Prepare the helicopter and get me General Harwick at Special Operations Command. To Elena, he said, I understand your position, but you're not going in without resources. I maintain certain capabilities outside normal channels, assets developed during my Intelligence Committee oversight role. What kind of assets? The kind that don't officially exist. Special operators who can function without leaving fingerprints. If this exchange is happening at Davis-Monthan, we need to be very careful. It's an active military installation which suggests the legacy group has official cover for their operation. Marshall returned. Helicopter is ready on the roof. General Harwick has authorized Chalk Team deployment dark protocol. Jenkins handed Elena a small communication device that resembled a hearing aid. Quantum encryption, undetectable by standard scanning equipment, keeps you connected to our team without alerting Harris's people. What about the prototype? Elena asked. I can't give them functional technology. Do you know how it works well enough to create a convincing non-functional duplicate? Elena considered the prototype's design. Yes, with the right equipment, I could modify it to appear operational while removing the critical components. Marshall, get Dr. Garza whatever equipment she needs. You have 90 minutes before the helicopter departs. Working in a makeshift lab setup in an adjacent office, Elena carefully disassembled the prototype. The device's elegant design revealed the brilliant collaboration between Carmen's theoretical knowledge and Robert's practical engineering skills. At its heart lay a specialized diamond matrix, 12 stones arranged in geometric precision, each stone modified at the quantum level by neutron bombardment to create unique energy-focusing properties. Elena removed and secured the critical diamond matrix, replacing it with standard industrial diamonds that would appear identical to visual inspection, but lack the quantum coherence necessary for fusion reactions. She then reassembled the device, ensuring all external indicators would function normally for at least 30 minutes before revealing the substitution. The helicopter journey to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base near Tucson took 45 minutes, a sleek civilian model that nonetheless carried sophisticated countermeasures against both radar detection and surface-to-air threats. Senator Jenkins apparently takes his oversight responsibilities very seriously, Elena observed as the pilot demonstrated the aircraft's capabilities. The senator believes in trust, but verify, Marshall replied, especially regarding agencies with classified budgets. They landed at a private airfield 5 miles from the base where a nondescript sedan awaited them. Marshall provided final instructions. Our assets are already in position around the exchange site. They'll maintain complete invisibility unless intervention becomes necessary. The communication device will allow them to track your position and monitor the situation. If things go sideways, give the code word Magnox, and they'll extract both you and your daughter immediately. Elena checked her watch, 3:30 a.m. And if Harris has his own backup plans, the senator anticipated that possibility. Let's just say certain communication channels around the base are experiencing technical difficulties, and several key legacy group members have been quietly detained for routine questioning by trusted FBI counterintelligence agents. The aircraft graveyard at Davis-Monthan was an eerie landscape, hundreds of decommissioned military aircraft arranged in neat rows, their forms creating strange silhouettes against the pre-dawn sky. The south entrance was minimally guarded with a single security checkpoint that seemed to be expecting Elena's arrival. "Dr. Garza," the guard said, checking her identification. "You're cleared to proceed to Hangar 47. Follow the marked route." The marked route was a series of portable aviation lights forming a path between rows of mothballed C-130 transport aircraft. Elena followed it cautiously, the modified prototype secure in her backpack, her senses alert for any sign of ambush. Hangar 47 was a massive structure designed to accommodate large aircraft for maintenance. Its main door stood open interior, illuminated by harsh industrial lighting that created sharp shadows across the concrete floor. In the center stood Richard Brooks, flanked by 4 men in tactical gear. Of Lucia and William Harris, there was no immediate sign. "Dr. Garza," Brooks called as she approached. "I trust you've brought what we discussed." "Where's my daughter?" Elena demanded, stopping 30 feet from Brooks's position. "Safe. Secretary Harris is personally ensuring her comfort. But first we need to verify you've brought the complete package." "I want to see Lucia first." Brooks smiled without warmth. "That's not how this works. The prototype and documentation first, then your daughter." "No, simultaneous exchange or no exchange." After a moment's consideration, Brooks spoke into his radio. Seconds later, a side door opened, and William Harris entered, holding Lucia's hand. The girl appeared physically unharmed, but obviously frightened despite her brave expression. "Mommy," Lucia called, starting forward before Harris gently but firmly restrained her. "All in good time," Harris said pleasantly. "Now, Dr. Garza, please place the backpack on the ground and step back." Elena removed the backpack but held it in her hands. "Lucia walks to me as I walk to you. We meet in the middle, make the exchange, and leave separately. Classic protocol for non-trusted parties." Harris seemed amused by her familiarity with exchange procedures. "Your husband taught you well." "Very well, we'll proceed as you suggest." At his nod, one of the tactical team members took position beside Lucia, while Harris stepped back. Elena and the armed escort began walking toward each other, Lucia taking small steps beside the much larger man. Through her concealed communication device, Elena heard a whispered update. 6 additional armed personnel on the hangar catwalks. Sniper team on the roof, extraction team standing by. As they reached the midpoint, Elena knelt to place the backpack on the floor, while the escort released Lucia's hand. The girl immediately ran to her mother, wrapping her arms around Elena's neck. "Mommy, they said Bisabuela's special light box is dangerous," Lucia whispered. "It's okay, mija. Everything's going to be fine." Elena held her daughter tightly, scanning the hangar for exit routes. Brooks approached to retrieve the backpack, unzipping it to examine the prototype. His cursory inspection seemed satisfied with the device's external appearance. "The documentation," he prompted. Elena nodded toward the backpack. "External pocket. Everything Carmen and Robert developed." As Brooks verified the contents, Harris approached, maintaining a careful distance. "A pleasure doing business with you, Dr. Garza. You've made the right decision." "Have I?" Elena asked. 12 people died in 1967, and you covered it up. More died tonight because you rushed the extraction. How many more will die for your legacy group's ambitions?" Harris's expression hardened. "You have your daughter. I suggest you leave while that remains the case." On in her ear, the whispered voice became urgent. "Dr. Garza, we have incoming aircraft, military helicopters, not on the approved flight plan. Multiple vehicles approaching the hangar perimeter. Recommend immediate extraction." Elena made a quick decision. "Lucia, remember how we practiced the hide-and-seek game? I need you to play it now. When I say go, run to the big airplane part in the corner and don't come out until I call your special name." The girl nodded solemnly, understanding the seriousness despite the game terminology. Harris's radio crackled with an urgent message. His expression shifted as he listened, then hardened as he looked at Elena. "You brought backup. Unwise, Dr. Garza." "Not my backup," Elena replied, realizing the truth. "Looks like someone else is interested in your operation." Harris turned to Brooks. "Secure the prototype. Initiate Protocol Omega." As Brooks hurried away with the backpack, Elena whispered. Lucia immediately sprinted toward the aircraft component. Elena had indicated a massive engine cowling, that provided excellent concealment. Magnox, Elena said, clearly activating the extraction protocol. Immediately, the hangar lights failed, plunging the space into darkness, broken only by emergency lighting. Chaos erupted as multiple things happened simultaneously. The hangar side doors burst open, admitting armed figures in FBI tactical gear. From the catwalks, precision shots disabled the weapons of Harris's security team without causing casualties. And from somewhere near Elena's position, a smoke grenade deployed, providing concealment for movement. A figure materialized beside Elena, a woman in nondescript tactical gear with no identifying markings. Senator Jenkins sends his regards. Time to leave. Elena moved toward Lucia's hiding place. My daughter is already being extracted by our second team. This way now. Elena followed her guide through the smoke, recognizing the disciplined movement patterns of special operations personnel. They exited through a maintenance door as the sound of FBI agents securing the hangar echoed behind them. Outside, a black SUV waited with engine running. As they approached, the rear door opened to reveal Lucia already inside, watched over by another tactical operator. "Mommy!" the girl called in relief. As they sped away from the hangar, Elena held Lucia tightly, watching through the rear window as multiple law enforcement vehicles surrounded the facility. In the distance, military helicopters circled with searchlights, sweeping the base perimeter. What happened? Elena asked her tactical escort. Those weren't Jenkins's people. Internal power struggle, the woman replied. Apparently, FBI counterintelligence has been investigating the Legacy Group for months. When they learned about tonight's exchange, they moved to intercept. Senator Jenkins merely provided them with convenient timing information. And Harris Brooks, in custody along with most of their operational team. The modified prototype is now classified evidence in a federal investigation. Elena smiled grimly. They'll be disappointed when they examine it closely. The tactical operator returned the smile. I imagine so. They rendezvoused with Senator Jenkins at a private airfield outside Tucson. The senator looked tired but satisfied as he greeted them. Dr. Garza, excellent work. I trust our extraction team performed adequately. Perfectly, Elena confirmed, though I'm curious about the FBI's convenient timing. Jenkins smiled diplomatically. Let's just say that when multiple oversight committees receive the same troubling information simultaneously, agencies tend to act decisively to establish primacy. Director Whitmore was quite interested to learn about unauthorized operations on U.S. military installations. What happens now? Harris Brooks and their key personnel are in custody. The FBI has secured the excavation site and called in CDC and DOE radiation teams, legitimate ones this time. Your property remains under government control temporarily, but with proper compensation and full disclosure of remediation plans. And the Legacy Group being dismantled systematically. It appears their network extended further than even I suspected throughout military procurement, energy policy, and weapons development programs. The investigation will take months, possibly years. What about the prototype, the real one? Jenkins gestured to a secure case being guarded by 2 of his staff, safely in committee custody along with all documentation. Once the immediate security situation is resolved, we'll discuss next steps for proper development and deployment of the technology. I believe your grandmother and husband would want it used for its intended purpose, clean energy rather than weapons applications. Elena nodded, exhaustion finally catching up with her as the adrenaline faded. And Colonel Morgan, have you heard from her? Safe in our Phoenix facility, her diversionary tactic was successful. She led Harris's surveillance team on quite a chase before our people extracted her. Lucia, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversations, suddenly spoke up. Is the bad man who hurt Daddy going to prison? The innocent question silenced the group momentarily. Elena knelt beside her daughter. Yes, mija. The people who hurt Daddy are going to face justice. And the special light box that Bisabuela and Daddy made will help people instead of hurting them, just like they wanted. Lucia nodded solemnly. Bisabuela said diamonds are just carbon that got squeezed really hard until it became something valuable. She said people are like that too. Elena hugged her daughter, struck by the profound wisdom in the child's simple statement. Carmen Rodriguez had indeed been squeezed by extraordinary pressure, the death of her husband, the burden of terrible secrets, the responsibility of protecting future generations from both environmental disaster and military exploitation. That pressure had transformed her from a simple lab technician into a visionary scientist whose work might now transform the world. As dawn broke over the desert landscape, Elena watched the first rays of sunlight illuminate the distant mountains. Somewhere beneath her grandmother's seemingly worthless land lay both terrible secrets and extraordinary potential, much like the human heart itself, capable of both destruction and creation, depending on the choices made by those entrusted with its power. The journey from weapon to salvation was nearly complete, just as Carmen had hoped. The diamonds created in the heart of a destructive test would now light the world instead of threatening it. The pressure that had created both tragedy and opportunity had finally produced something of true lasting value. The circle was complete, the legacy secured, the future bright with possibilities Carmen and Robert had only dreamed of now lay before them, waiting to be shaped by hands more interested in building than destroying. 3 weeks passed with the swiftness of desert wind and the weight of mountains. Elena and Lucia remained in protective custody at a secure government facility outside Washington, D.C., their days filled with debriefings, technical consultations, and preparation for the upcoming Senate Intelligence Committee hearings. The modest two-bedroom apartment provided for them was comfortable, but clinical, lacking the personal touches that made a place home. Through the bulletproof windows, they could see the manicured grounds and the ever-present security detail, constant reminders that their ordeal wasn't yet over. The morning news played on the television as Elena prepared breakfast, the broadcaster's voice filling the small kitchen with updates on what was now being called the Esperanza incident. The Department of Energy continues remediation efforts at the Arizona site, where officials say a previously unknown Cold War testing facility was discovered during routine environmental monitoring. While officials maintain there is no current danger to surrounding communities, expanded testing of groundwater supplies continues throughout the region. Elena turned off the broadcast as Lucia entered the kitchen, still in her pajamas, decorated with mathematical equations, a gift from Catherine Morgan. "Is today the day we talk to the important people?" Lucia asked, climbing onto a stool at the counter. "Yes, mija. We'll be going to the Senate building this afternoon. Remember what we practiced?" Lucia nodded solemnly. "Only answer the questions they ask. Don't talk about the special diamonds unless you say it's okay. If I get scared, I can look at you or Colonel Morgan." Elena served her daughters breakfast pancakes shaped like atoms, a small tradition she'd started to make their confined situation feel more normal. "That's right. These are very important people who need to understand what happened, but you don't have to tell them everything, because some secrets keep people safe." Exactly. The careful balance between disclosure and security had been the focus of countless discussions with Senator Jenkins and his staff. While the existence of Project Magnox and its catastrophic failure needed to be revealed, certain technical details, particularly regarding the diamond-enhanced fusion technology, remained sensitive from both national security and economic perspectives. A knock at the door signaled the arrival of Catherine Morgan. The colonel entered wearing her full-dress uniform, medals and ribbons meticulously arranged across her chest, a visual reminder of her decades of service to the country, whose secrets she was now helping expose. "Good morning, Garza family. Ready for the big day?" Lucia ran to hug the colonel, who had become something of an aunt figure during their confinement. "You're wearing your special uniform. When you testify before the United States Senate, you dress to impress," Catherine replied with a wink. "Your mother's dress uniform is laid out as well." Elena hadn't worn her Los Alamos ID badge in formal attire since leaving the lab 3 years earlier. The symbol-laden identification that once represented her professional accomplishments now served a different purpose, establishing her credibility before skeptical senators. "Any updates on the witness list?" Elena asked as she cleared breakfast dishes. Catherine nodded. "Deputy Secretary Harris's attorneys are still fighting his appearance, claiming medical exemptions. Brooks will testify under limited immunity. Dr. Reynolds," she paused, glancing at Lucia. "Dr. Reynolds won't be able to appear in person. His condition has deteriorated significantly." Elena understood the unspoken message. Samuel Reynolds was dying, his testimony to be provided via pre-recorded deposition. Another witness to the original cover-up, slipping away just as the legacy group had counted on for decades. And the prototype: has the technical analysis been completed? The Senate Science Advisory Panel confirmed its functionality yesterday. They're calling it the most significant energy breakthrough since the first controlled nuclear reaction. Several committee members were visibly shaken by the implications. As they prepared to leave, Elena checked her secure phone for messages from Patricia Ramirez. The attorney had been released from custody 5 days after the Davis-Monthan confrontation. All charges dropped as the FBI's Internal Affairs Division began dismantling the corrupt network within their own agency. She was now coordinating the civil case against the government on behalf of the families of the original 12 victims, including Elena's grandfather. Patricia says the Justice Department is discussing settlement terms for the families, Elena reported. They're trying to avoid a public trial. Of course they are, Catherine replied. A trial would mean a full discovery of documents going back to 1967. Too many prominent careers would be retrospectively tarnished. The journey to Capitol Hill took place in a convoy of unmarked government vehicles. Their route varied daily to prevent potential interference. As they approached the Senate office building, Elena noted the increased security presence and media vehicles lining the perimeter. Quite the circus, Catherine observed. Someone leaked the hearing schedule to the press. Intentionally, almost certainly. Various factions are positioning themselves either to contain the damage or exploit it politically. The revelations about the legacy group's reach have implications across multiple administrations and agencies. Inside the building, they were escorted to a private preparation room where Senator Jenkins awaited them. The senator looked tired but resolute, his normally immaculate suit showing signs of a man who had been working around the clock. Dr. Garza, Colonel Morgan, thank you for your patience these past weeks. Today's hearing will be structured to establish the historical record while protecting certain sensitive details. We've arranged for Lucia to testify first briefly, then remain with child welfare staff during the more technical portions. Lucia looked up from the book she'd brought, along a biography of Marie Curie that seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Will the bad men be there? The ones who hurt Daddy? Jenkins knelt to meet her at eye level. No, young lady. Those individuals will testify separately. You won't have to see them. While Lucia returned to her reading, Jenkins lowered his voice to brief Elena and Catherine on developments too sensitive for younger ears. William Harris attempted suicide in custody 3 days ago. He's under medical supervision at a secure facility. The investigation into the legacy group has identified 37 current government officials with direct involvement, including 2 federal judges and a deputy director at sea. And the remediation at the test site, Elena asked. Proceeding under international oversight, the IAEA has been granted access to ensure proper protocols are followed. Preliminary assessment indicates the containment failure was limited to the immediate excavation area. Groundwater contamination appears minimal, though long-term monitoring will continue. And my property will eventually be returned to you, though certain restrictions on development will apply permanently. The government is preparing a substantial compensation package reflecting both the mineral rights value and the damages from decades of concealment. A staff member entered to inform them the committee was ready. As they walked toward the hearing room, Elena felt the weight of history pressing upon her shoulders. Her grandmother had carried these secrets for decades, passing the burden to Robert and now to her. Today, that burden would finally be shared with the world. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room was imposing by design, high ceilings, dark wood paneling, and raised dais for the senators that subtly reinforced the power dynamic between questioners and witnesses. Television cameras positioned throughout captured every angle, broadcasting the proceedings to a nation that had awakened to headlines about Cold War secrets and government cover-ups. Senator Jenkins took his position at the center of the committee panel, flanked by colleagues from both political parties. The bipartisan nature of the inquiry had been carefully orchestrated to prevent accusations of political motivation. This was to be presented as an issue of governmental accountability transcending party lines. This special session of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence will come to order. Jenkins began, his voice carrying the formal cadence of official proceedings. Today we begin examination of what has become known as the Esperanza Incident, a matter involving classified nuclear testing, subsequent cover-up of civilian casualties, and the ongoing efforts by certain officials to conceal these actions from proper oversight. The chairman outlined the scope of the hearings, historical actions related to Project Magnox and Crystal Harvest. the 1967 incident that resulted in civilian casualties, the decades-long environmental monitoring conducted by Carmen Rodriguez, the recent attempt to extract technology from the abandoned test site, and the actions of the Legacy Group in maintaining the cover-up. Our first witness today is Lucia Garza, whose testimony will be limited in both scope and duration in accordance with protocols for minor witnesses. Lucia approached the witness table with remarkable composure for an 8-year-old. Elena watched proudly as her daughter took the oath with solemn dignity, her small hand raised as she promised to tell the truth. Senator Jenkins led the questioning, gently establishing Lucia's relationship to Carmen Rodriguez and her experiences at the property. Lucia, can you tell us about the special rocks your great-grandmother collected? Bisabuela had lots of different rocks in cans in her workshop. She let me help sort them sometimes. She said they were special because they were made by fire from the sky and someday they'd help people instead of hurting them. Did she explain what she meant by that? Not really, but she showed me her special hiding places and said that if men in suits ever came looking, I should tell my mommy about them. And did men in suits eventually come looking? Lucia nodded. Yes. First the man with the red car who took pictures of our land. Then the FBI people. Then the men who took me from Aunt Patricia's house. Were you scared when that happened? Yes, but I remembered what Daddy taught me about being brave even when you're scared. And I knew Mommy would come for me. Jenkins nodded approvingly. Thank you, Lucia. You've been very helpful and very brave. I have no further questions for this witness. After Lucia was escorted from the room by child welfare staff, the hearing shifted to more technical testimony. Elena took the witness chair, aware of the cameras capturing her every expression for an audience that included both the American public and undoubtedly foreign intelligence services interested in the technology implications. For the next 2 hours, she methodically detailed her discoveries, beginning with the geological survey and radiation anomalies, continuing through the historical documentation of Project Magnox and the neutron device testing, and culminating with the recent containment failure during the Legacy Group's extraction attempt. Garza, Senator Holloway, a former prosecutor known for his direct questioning style, leaned forward. Based on your expertise in nuclear engineering, what would have happened if the neutron device's containment had failed completely during the recent extraction operation? Complete containment failure would have released significant radiation across a 3-mile radius, potentially exposing thousands to dangerous levels of neutron radiation. Groundwater contamination would have affected agricultural operations throughout the region. The environmental impact would have persisted for decades. And in your professional opinion, was the Legacy Group aware of these risks when they proceeded with the extraction? They were not only aware but had prepared contingency protocols for such an outcome. Documents recovered from their operation included pre-drafted press statements attributing any radiation release to previously unknown mining waste. The questioning continued with particular focus on the technical aspects of the original 1967 incident and the subsequent cover-up. Elena carefully navigated the boundary between full disclosure and protection of sensitive technical details, particularly regarding the diamond-enhanced fusion technology. Catherine Morgan's testimony followed, providing the military and intelligence perspective. Her decades of service lent particular weight to her assessment of the Legacy Group's operations. Colonel Morgan, Senator Jenkins asked, based on your experience in military intelligence, how would you characterize the Legacy Group's activities? The systematic concealment of a nuclear incident resulting in civilian casualties, the deliberate falsification of death certificates and environmental reports, the misappropriation of government resources for unauthorized technology extraction, and the targeted elimination of individuals threatening to expose these activities collectively constitute what I would classify as a rogue operation, contrary to both U.S. law and military ethics. And in your assessment, how high did knowledge of these operations extend? Based on documentation recovered from William Harris's files, awareness of the Legacy Group's activities extended to cabinet-level officials in multiple administrations. The operation was specifically structured to maintain plausible deniability through compartmentalization of information. The afternoon session focused on the prototype energy technology developed by Carmen Rodriguez and Robert Garza. Dr. Martin Chen, chairman of the Senate's Scientific Advisory Panel, presented the technical assessment. The device utilizes a previously theoretical approach to fusion energy generation, Dr. Chen explained. By employing neutron-enhanced diamond matrices as both catalyst and containment mechanism, it achieves stable fusion reactions at near room temperature with minimal radiation byproduct. If successfully developed at scale, this technology represents a fundamental shift in global energy production comparable to the original development of nuclear fission reactors. And the potential applications, Senator Jenkins prompted. Clean energy generation without radioactive waste or greenhouse gas emissions. A 1 kilogram diamond matrix could theoretically power a small city indefinitely. Larger installations could replace conventional power plants entirely. The national security and economic implications are profound. The final witness of the day was Patricia Ramirez, who presented documentation regarding the civil claims of the families affected by the 1967 incident. Her testimony transformed abstract government malfeasance into human tragedy. 12 families who had lost loved ones to what they had been told were natural causes, their grief compounded by decades of official deception. Antonio Rodriguez Elena Garza's grandfather was told his radiation sickness symptoms were heart disease, Ramirez concluded. He died believing he had failed to protect his family from poverty. Instead, he had been sacrificed to protect government officials from accountability. As the first day of hearings concluded, Senator Jenkins announced the schedule for subsequent sessions. Technical experts would testify about the containment remediation FBI officials would address, the legacy group's penetration of law enforcement, and finally Richard Brooks would provide testimony under immunity about the group's operations and the circumstances of Robert Garza's death. Outside the hearing room, media representatives swarmed the corridor shouting questions as Elena and Catherine were escorted to a secure exit. The day's testimony had already generated headlines across the country: Cold War nuclear secret exposed after 60 years, and government cover-up of civilian radiation deaths revealed. That evening in their secure accommodations, Elena watched the news coverage with mixed emotions. The truth was finally emerging, but the public narrative inevitably simplified the complex technical and ethical issues involved. Carmen's life's work was being reduced to sound bites and political talking points. "They're missing the point," she told Catherine, as they reviewed preparation materials for the next day's testimony. "This isn't just about government malfeasance or amazing technology. It's about the choice between using knowledge for destruction or creation. That's always been the fundamental question of nuclear science," Catherine replied. "From the Manhattan Project forward, the same knowledge that could destroy civilization could also power it. Your grandmother understood that better than most." The next morning brought unexpected news. Dr. Samuel Reynolds had died during the night, his deposition now serving as final testimony. With his passing, the last direct witness to the 1967 incident was gone. The burden of truth now rested entirely on documentation and secondhand accounts. The day's hearing focused on technical aspects of the remediation effort. International experts testified about containment protocols, environmental monitoring systems, and long-term management of the site. The clinical discussion of radiation half-lives and soil contamination patterns seemed bloodless compared to the human cost established in the previous day's testimony. During a brief recess, Senator Jenkins approached Elena with concerns about the following day's scheduled testimony from Richard Brooks. "His attorneys are pushing for additional immunity guarantees," Jenkins explained. "They're claiming he has information about Robert's death that wasn't included in his initial statements." "What kind of information?" "They won't specify without the expanded immunity. The Justice Department is reluctant to grant it without knowing what they're protecting him from." "I want to hear whatever he knows about Robert," Elena said firmly. "Whatever it takes." The third day of hearings began with Richard Brooks taking the witness chair. His appearance markedly changed from the confident operative who had confronted Elena at her property. Weeks in federal custody had left him haggard, his expensive suit replaced by more modest attire. He sat flanked by two attorneys who watched the proceedings with predatory attention to procedural details. Senator Jenkins established the parameters of Brooks' testimony and the limited immunity granted for his truthful cooperation. The former CIA officer acknowledged his role in the legacy group, his participation in the technology extraction operation, and his awareness of the historical cover-up of the 1967 incident. Mr. Brooks, Jenkins began the substantive questioning. Please describe your understanding of what happened to Commander Robert Garza. Brooks glanced at his attorneys, who nodded permission to proceed. Commander Garza was investigating the Legacy Group's interest in the Esperanza property. He had connected Carmen Rodriguez's employment history with Project Magnox and discovered documentation regarding the 1967 incident. When he began requesting classified files through naval intelligence channels, it triggered monitoring protocols. And what happened when his investigation was discovered? Deputy Secretary Harris ordered surveillance of Garza's activities. When it became clear he had made contact with Dr. Reynolds and was preparing to file a formal report through his chain of command, the decision was made to neutralize the threat. Neutralize, Jenkins repeated coldly. You mean assassinate. The official terminology was mitigate security breach through asset removal. I was not directly involved in the operation, but I am aware it was disguised as a training accident during a classified mission. Elena maintained her composure with effort, years of laboratory discipline, helping her control the surge of grief and rage that threatened to overwhelm her professional demeanor. The clinical description of her husband's murder as asset removal made her physically ill. Who gave the direct order for Commander Garza's assassination? Jenkins continued. Deputy Secretary Harris authorized the operation. The actual execution was handled by a Legacy Group asset embedded in Naval Special Operations. And do you know the identity of this asset? Brooks hesitated, looking again to his attorneys. After a whispered consultation, he responded, Captain James Westfield, current commander of Special Reconnaissance Team 6. The name struck Elena like a physical blow. James Westfield had been Robert's commanding officer. He had personally delivered the news of Robert's training accident, had spoken at his funeral, had even maintained occasional contact with Elena afterward, checking on her and Lucia's welfare. The betrayal was absolute. Mr. Brooks, Senator Holloway interjected, are you testifying that a currently serving naval officer assassinated one of his own men on orders from civilian officials? Yes, Senator. Captain Westfield has been a Legacy Group asset since 2006. He has performed multiple operations classified as national security interventions when conventional channels were deemed inadequate. The revelation sent visible shockwaves through the hearing room. The committee called an immediate recess to address the security implications of Brooks's testimony, particularly regarding the potential for additional Legacy Group assets still operating within military and intelligence structures. During the recess, Elena was approached by Marshal Senator Jenkins' Chief of Staff. Dr. Garza, we've just received information that Captain Westfield was taken into custody by NCIS an hour ago. It appears someone leaked Brooks' planned testimony. The senator believes you should be aware that Westfield was scheduled to testify later this week about Commander Garza's death. He was going to admit his role. According to our sources, he was negotiating immunity in exchange for revealing the complete Legacy Group network within Special Operations. Now that Brooks has identified him publicly, that leverage is gone. When the hearing resumed, Brooks continued his testimony about the Legacy Group's operations, including details of their attempts to acquire the diamond-enhanced fusion technology developed by Carmen and Robert. The prototype represented a fundamental threat to established power structures, Brooks explained. Clean, limitless energy would undermine the strategic leverage of both fossil fuels and conventional nuclear power. Multiple trillion-dollar industries would face obsolescence. Certain Legacy Group principals had significant financial interests in maintaining energy scarcity. So this wasn't just about weapons applications or national security, Jenkins clarified. This was about money and power. The Legacy Group operated at the intersection of national security, corporate interests, and political influence. Those boundaries became increasingly blurred over decades of operation. The final scheduled witness was William Harris, appearing via secure video link from the medical facility where he was being held. The former Deputy Secretary of Energy appeared pale and diminished, an oxygen tube visible beneath his nose, his once commanding presence reduced to that of a frail old man confronting his mortality. Harris's testimony was defiant despite his weakened state. He acknowledged his role in both the original 1967 incident and the subsequent cover-up, but justified his actions as necessary for national security. You must understand the context, he insisted. We were in an existential struggle with the Soviet Union. Project Magnox represented a critical strategic advantage portable nuclear power for forward military operations. When the containment failure occurred, exposing our activities would have compromised national security and alerted the Soviets to our technological approach. So you falsified death certificates, lied to families, and concealed radiation exposure that continued to affect the region for decades, Senator Holloway summarized, all in the name of national security. Difficult decisions must be made in the defense of this nation, Harris replied without apparent remorse. History is written by those with the courage to act decisively. And Commander Garza, Elena found herself speaking before realizing she had intended a breaking protocol, but unable to contain the question. Was his murder also a difficult decision? Harris regarded her through the video screen, his expression unreadable. Commander Garza threatened to expose ongoing national security operations. His Navy career gave him credibility that could not be easily dismissed. The determination was made that the technology he and Carmen Rodriguez had developed was too valuable to risk public disclosure. You killed him to control the technology, Elena said flatly. We acted to protect national interests. The diamond-enhanced fusion process has military applications that supersede civilian energy concerns. In the wrong hands, that technology could destabilize global security frameworks that have maintained peace for generations. Before Elena could respond, Senator Jenkins intervened, restoring procedural order to the hearing. Harris continued his testimony, providing detailed information about the Legacy Group's structure operations and penetration of government agencies over 6 decades. As the day's session concluded, Jenkins announced that the following day would feature technical testimony regarding the diamond-enhanced fusion technology, with particular focus on its development, potential applications, and security implications. That evening, Elena met privately with Jenkins and his staff to discuss the sensitive aspects of the upcoming technical testimony. The national security implications of the technology required careful navigation between transparency and prudent limitation of technical details. The scientific community is already extrapolating potential applications from the limited information available, Jenkins explained. We need to establish enough of a public record to prevent suppression of the technology while avoiding disclosure of specifications that could lead to weaponization. Carmen and Robert developed this as an energy source, not a weapon, Elena insisted. That's how it should be presented. I agree completely, which is why tomorrow's testimony needs to focus on the civilian applications while acknowledging the security concerns in appropriate context. The meeting was interrupted by Marshall, who entered with a secure tablet displaying breaking news. Captain James Westfield found dead in custody, apparent suicide. The headline hit Elena with unexpected force. The man who had killed Robert, who had looked her in the eye at the funeral while knowing he had carried out the assassination, had escaped accountability through death. The complex emotions this generated, anger, frustration, grief, and a disturbing sense of hollow vindication, left her momentarily speechless. This pattern is becoming familiar, Catherine observed grimly. Harris attempts suicide now. Westfield succeeds. The Legacy Group appears to have contingency protocols for members facing exposure. Or someone is eliminating witnesses, Jenkins added. We need to enhance security for all remaining Legacy Group members in custody. The final day of hearings focused on the future rather than the past. Elena provided detailed testimony about the diamond-enhanced fusion technology, carefully framing it in terms of its energy generation potential rather than possible weapons applications. The prototype my grandmother and husband developed generates 5 kilowatts continuously from a diamond matrix smaller than a deck of cards, she explained. Scaled appropriately, this technology could revolutionize global energy production without greenhouse gas emissions, radioactive waste, or resource depletion concerns. The scientific advisory panel confirmed her assessment, adding their own analysis of the technology's transformative potential. Dr. Chen presented models showing how widespread implementation could address climate change, energy poverty, and geopolitical tensions related to resource scarcity. This may be the most significant scientific breakthrough of the century, he concluded. The question before us is not whether this technology should be developed, but how to ensure it benefits humanity rather than becoming controlled by the same interests that sought to suppress it. Senator Jenkins outlined the committee's preliminary recommendations establishment of an international oversight framework for technology development, compensation for affected families from the 1967 incident, environmental remediation of the test site, declassification of historical documents related to Project Magnox, and criminal prosecution of surviving legacy group members. This committee believes the diamond-enhanced fusion technology represents a public trust, Jenkins stated formally. While legitimate national security concerns exist, the potential benefits to humanity demand transparent development under appropriate safeguards rather than classified suppression. As the hearings concluded, Jenkins addressed Elena directly. Dr. Garza, your grandmother and husband, paid tremendous prices to preserve this technology for future generations. What do you believe should happen with their work now? Elena considered the question carefully, aware that her answer would shape public perception and policy discussions moving forward. My grandmother witnessed the destructive potential of nuclear technology firsthand. She dedicated her life to transforming that knowledge into something that could heal rather than harm. My husband sacrificed his life to protect that vision. I believe the technology should be developed openly with international cooperation and oversight focused entirely on civilian energy applications. The era of security through secrecy has failed us. Perhaps security through shared prosperity deserves its chance. The hearings adjourned with a sense of cautious optimism. The dark secrets of the past exposed to light, accountability processes initiated, and a potential path forward identified for the revolutionary technology. 3 days later, Elena and Lucia prepared to return to Arizona. Their protective custody had been modified to a less restrictive security arrangement that would continue until all legacy group members were accounted for. Patricia Ramirez had secured a settlement agreement for the families of the 1967 victims, including a formal government acknowledgement of responsibility and substantial compensation. As they packed their belongings, Catherine Morgan arrived with unexpected news. The technical team examining Carmen's underground lab made an additional discovery, she explained, handing Elena a small leather-bound journal. This was hidden in a compartment beneath the workbench. It appears to be your grandmother's personal diary rather than her technical notes. Elena opened the journal, carefully recognizing Carmen's handwriting, but noting this was different from the scientific documentation they had previously discovered. These were personal reflections, her grandmother's private thoughts rather than her professional observations. An entry from June 1967, days after the incident, caught her attention. They came today with their lies about Antonio's heart. I saw the radiation burns on his hands, the bleeding from his gums, the symptoms I recognized from my training. They offered money for silence, threatened me with national security charges if I spoke the truth. I took their money and signed their papers, not for myself, but for what I must now do. Antonio deserves justice, but not merely the justice of exposure and punishment. True justice will come when I transform their weapon into salvation. I will use their blood money to buy this cursed land and extract its secrets. What they created in hatred, I will recreate in love. Elena turned pages, finding entries spanning decades, Carmen's methodical documentation of her secret work, her personal struggles, and her evolving understanding of the diamond's potential. An entry from 1987 revealed a startling connection. William Harris visited today for the first time in years. He pretends concern about containment integrity, but his questions focus on my diamond samples. He doesn't recognize me as the same technician he ordered silenced in 1967. My English is better now, my name changed through marriage, my appearance altered by time. I see in his eyes no recognition of the woman whose husband he murdered through radiation and lies. My God, Elena whispered. Harris was directly responsible for my grandfather's death, and Carmen knew it all along. The most revealing entry came from 2018, shortly before Carmen's death. Robert understands now. I have shown him everything in the diamonds, the containment site, the prototype. He grasps both the science and the mission. When he learned what happened to Antonio, I feared his military instincts would demand conventional justice, exposure, prosecution, punishment. Instead, he proposed something more profound: complete the transformation from weapon to salvation, then reveal everything. Let the technology itself stand as living testimony to the possibility of redemption. Even the darkest acts can give birth to light if we choose to make it so. The final entry, dated just days before Carmen's death, was addressed directly to Elena. My beloved granddaughter, if you are reading this, then the mission is now yours to complete. Robert and I have created the foundation, but you must build upon it. The diamonds born of destruction now offer creation. The technology that began in secrecy must flourish in openness. This is not merely about energy or environment, but about the fundamental choice humanity faces whether knowledge serves life or death. I chose life in the face of death. Robert made the same choice. Now the choice passes to you. Forgive me for the secrets I kept from you. They were burdens I wished to spare you until necessary. Antonia would be proud of the woman you have become, brilliant, principled, compassionate. Those qualities, more than any technical expertise, are what this mission requires. Transform the legacy of death into a future of life. That is how we truly honor those we have lost. Elena closed the journal, tears flowing freely as the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Carmen's lifetime of secrecy and apparent eccentricity had concealed a mission of profound purpose, not merely scientific discovery or environmental monitoring, but a deeply personal quest for redemptive justice. She hadn't just been collecting rocks or documenting radiation. She had been methodically transforming the legacy of her husband's murder into a gift for future generations. The diamonds created through destruction would now power a future without the resource conflicts and environmental degradation that had characterized the century of her suffering. She never wanted revenge, Elena realized aloud. She wanted transformation. Catherine nodded, understanding. The most powerful response to destruction isn't more destruction, it's creation. Carmen chose the harder path. As they prepared to depart for Arizona, Elena felt the weight of her grandmother's mission transferring fully to her shoulders. The Senate hearings had established the historical record and initiated accountability processes, but the true work remained guiding the diamond-enhanced fusion technology into appropriate development for humanity's benefit. What now? Catherine asked as they loaded their belongings into the waiting vehicle. Elena looked at Lucia, who was carefully packing her great-grandmother's journal alongside her own books and treasures. In her daughter's determined expression, Elena saw echoes of Carmen's quiet strength, Robert's principled courage, and Antonio's enduring legacy. Now we build, Elena answered simply, just as Carmen and Robert intended. We transform the legacy of the past into the promise of the future. The Arizona desert stretched before them as they returned home, not to the trailer that had been their shelter during times of struggle, but to a future shaped by revelations both painful and promising. Beneath that seemingly worthless land had lain both tragedy and opportunity, both death and potential life. The choice between them had always been human rather than technological. Carmen Rodriguez had made her choice in 1967, standing amid the wreckage of deception and loss. Robert Garza had made his choice when he discovered the truth and chose creation over exposure. Now Elena and Lucia would make theirs, carrying forward a legacy transformed by love and determination from the darkest chapters of Cold War secrecy into the bright possibility of a world powered by light. The journey from weapon to salvation was complete. The diamonds created in destruction's heart would now illuminate a different future, one worthy of the sacrifices that had preserved their potential through decades of darkness into the waiting light of a new day. 3 years later, the Carmen Rodriguez Center for Sustainable Energy Technology opened its doors on the outskirts of Esperanza, Arizona. The sleek facility of glass and steel rose from the desert like a monument to transformation, built on the edge of the former test site, now fully remediated and enclosed within a nature preserve that would remain undeveloped for generations. The dedication ceremony brought together an unlikely assembly. Government officials, military personnel, scientists, and the families of those affected by both the 1967 incident and its subsequent cover-up. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the gathering as Elena Garza stood at the podium, her Los Alamos credentials replaced by the insignia of the International Diamond Fusion Commission she now directed. The road to this moment had not been smooth. Political resistance, corporate interference, and technical challenges had threatened the project repeatedly. The prosecution of legacy group members had revealed uncomfortable truths about institutional failures spanning decades in administrations. Some perpetrators had faced justice. Others had died before accountability could reach them. The system had both failed and eventually corrected itself imperfectly, incompletely, but substantively. Behind Elena, the center's main research building bore Carmen Rodriguez's name, while the adjacent education facility honored Robert Garza. Nearby stood a simple memorial listing the 12 victims of the 1967 incident, ordinary citizens whose lives had been sacrificed in the name of national security and then erased from official history. Their names were now permanently inscribed in stone, their families finally granted both acknowledgement and restitution. Lucia, now 11, sat in the front row between Catherine Morgan and Senator Jenkins, her proud gaze fixed on her mother. The girl who had once hidden diamonds in her teddy bear now led her school's science club, her inherited brilliance directed toward creation rather than destruction. This center represents not just scientific advancement, but moral progress, Elena told the assembled crowd. My grandmother witnessed firsthand how knowledge could be weaponized, how secrecy could shield accountability, and how institutions could lose sight of the citizens they were meant to serve. She chose a different path, not one of bitter vengeance, but of patient transformation. The first commercial applications of diamond-enhanced fusion were already being implemented, small-scale power units for remote communities, research stations, in developing nations, and disaster relief operations. Larger installations were under construction in partnership with countries across the political spectrum. The technology's development governed by international protocols that emphasize transparency and shared benefit rather than competitive advantage. America's strength has never rested solely in its military might or economic power, Elena continued. Our true greatness emerges when we confront our failures honestly and recommit to our founding principles. The Legacy Group believed power flowed from secrecy and control. They were wrong. Real power, lasting power, comes from transparency, accountability, and the collective human potential unleashed when knowledge serves progress rather than dominance. In the years since the Senate hearings, the full history of Project Magnox had been declassified, studied in universities, and integrated into the national conversation about government accountability. The painful examination had strengthened rather than weakened American institutions, reinforcing the foundational principle that even in matters of national security, constitutional values, and human dignity could not be casually sacrificed. Elena gestured toward the memorial bearing her grandfather's name. Antonio Rodriguez died believing he had failed to provide for his family. Today, his sacrifice helps power communities worldwide. Robert Garza died protecting a technology he believed could transform human possibility. Today, his vision is being realized. Carmen Rodriguez died knowing she had converted tragedy into opportunity. Today, we honor her lifetime of quiet determination. As the ceremony concluded, Elena joined Lucia at the center's demonstration area, where visitors could observe a working diamond-enhanced fusion unit, its soft blue glow illuminating the faces of school children, government officials, and ordinary citizens alike. The technology born in secrecy now operated in full view, its development guided by the principle that knowledge belonged not to institutions, but to humanity. The desert wind carried the scent of creosote and sage as Elena and Lucia walked to the heart rock, preserved in its original location as a reminder of both natural beauty and human resilience. The land that had once been deemed worthless now generated both energy and hope, its hidden treasure transformed from weapon to salvation through 3 generations of determined service. Bisabuela was right, Lucia observed, placing a small stone atop the formation in the Jewish tradition of remembrance Carmen had always followed. Diamonds are just carbon that got squeezed really hard until it became something valuable. People are like that too. Elena smiled at her daughter's wisdom, recognizing in it the legacy that mattered most, not technology or compensation, but the understanding that even the darkest moments contain the potential for light if one had the courage and patience to find it. The desert sun caught the facets of the memorial stones, scattering light across the landscape that had witnessed both America's failures and its capacity for redemption.